sport, shows, updates, and interviews. The only way is the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick that, relax, the TWSN.
Shout out Young Swish.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of State of the Jungle presented by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright. Jumping my co-host, as always, we've got Evan, we've got Logan, we've got Daniel, got Jimmy on the 1-2s. We got Evan back. Evan was here last week on the show. We obviously, the last few weeks, have moved the show to a Friday due to weather. But it seems like everything is on the up and up. Happy to be back here. Happy to be talking things. Do us a huge favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or when we upload content from the TWSN studios. Boys, before we jump into the show, I just want to say something real quick. I launched our company, the Right Way Sports Network. I launched our company, the Right Way Sports Network, in 2018, and my whole idea behind launching TWSN was to be different from the regular media norms. I could take my phone too. You could pass me my phone. To be different from all the regular media norms, to be simply us, right? When I first got into this industry, I remember we were met with so much backlash, namely from people who were the old guard media, who've been in the industry for over 20 plus years. First thing they used to ask us was, who are you with? I remember there was one incident where one guy grabbed my name tag, saw who was with. I just introduced myself and simply just threw it to the side and kept walking, showed us no respect. For us, I've never wanted to be like any other platform that people have seen before, right? We give our unfiltered opinions here at TWSN. We touch on topics that are common, but also we tackle the topics that are uncommon in the industry. We'll talk about things that could potentially happen. We genuinely are a sports platform for the fans. I encourage all my people to have a pulse on what's going on and different sports sectors of our, of our realm, so to speak. And I never try to silence people's difference of opinions, no matter how wild the take might seem or unpopular the take might seem here at TWS. And I'll never be the person, I'll never be the boss that silences people. That's just not how I do things. I believe everybody's entitled to an opinion. I encourage everyone to try and use their imagination to the best of their ability. That all being said, I understand, as of recently, I would say there were some people that didn't like the way we were sort of pushing our content here at TWSN. And here's what I'll say to that. We are always striving to get better. We are always striving for different ways that we can get better with producing our content. But one thing I won't stand for is the bullying of my people, the disrespect of my people on social media. And so what I'll say to kind of wrap this whole thing up is, I think it's important to remember there's not one way or right way, even though that's our slogan, to do things in this industry. Nobody is the gatekeeper of how we do things in this industry. Just like I'm not the gatekeeper of how you do things in the industry. What I will say is, let's keep it to a level of professionalism and respect, because, I have a lot of respect for a lot of people who represent this industry, who cover sports in this industry, but understand we are not like you guys. We are new media. We will do things differently. Some things you'll agree with, some things you won't. Some things I will take into account, but I will always show respect. But let's keep it respectful while we're doing so. I'm always down to have a conversation, always down to talk one-on-one, but I will not take disrespect of my people, the bullying, the harassment of my people. And I just wanted to start the show by saying that. So again, appreciate everybody, respect everybody, hoping everybody's going to have a good NFL draft season. And I wish you sites the absolute best, but competition is competition. Let's go. So at the end of the day, this is State of the Jungle War Room. This is 3.0?
Mhm.
Damn, I thought it was
Yes,
4.0.
sir.
It's 3.0, okay? State of the Jungle 3.0. Last week was pretty interesting. We drafted some people that people didn't necessarily think. I didn't think we drafted them. I didn't think that we would have the draft that sort of panned out the way it did. I honestly think that that was the best draft that we have put together so far in all our years of doing State of the Jungle War Room. But it's something that it's one thing I'm really, really excited about. I don't know if you got to see all the trades we did, Evan.
I did not. No,
Man.
unfortunately, I was stuck doing some emergency work for a local school, trying to get all of their security stuff up and running. So was not fun. Would have much rather been here with you guys drafting until 1 a.m. instead of working until 1 a.m. on a Friday. That was not great.
Well, listen, man, it was interesting. It was fun. It was great. I'm happy that we got to talk things through and get down to our favorite picks of the draft. Again, this one is going to be interesting because I'm gonna try to sit back a little bit more and kind of let some of y'all be the GM, so to speak, and determine if we make trades. Although I will speak passionately if I think that there is a point where we need to make trades and make picks and stuff like that, and we'll go from there. But Daniel, what were your thoughts on last week's draft before we before we jump to, we still want to touch on two things, but what were your thoughts on last week's draft?
Yeah, I think last week's draft is a tale of two different drafts. You know, you got as many picks as you need, and I think that was the biggest thing. We went from having 6 picks that the Bengals have to we had 9 picks, and that was the biggest benefit that I really saw. So when you guys look at the actual players that we drafted, it is because we made those trades, right? We traded down in the first round. We traded back in the second round as well. So the fact that the Bengals, had 2 second-round picks, I think that changed everything with how we looked. So I was a fan of it, and I think that it should be a realistic possibility when you look at the draft. If you're not sold at somebody at 17, and if somebody's calling you and saying, hey, we want to move up to 17, you definitely have to listen. So like I said, I was a fan of it, and I think we got a ton of great players in there. And having 2 second-round picks, especially in this draft, I think is the biggest thing for, if the Bengals could swing a trade and get another second or another third-round pick, I think that would be huge. And that's why I think we were all pretty happy with it, because we got more picks. We had 9 picks, and we had 3 in the top 55, and that's what really changed the draft. So I was happy with it.
Yeah, I think in general, having those 2 seconds. I mean, if you watched last week, we spent a lot of time debating it. Like we could have went so many different ways. We could have went so many different players. We thought about double dipping. We thought about doing so many different things. But it's just, that's what you can do when you have more picks, especially more top 100 picks, more top 75 picks. Just the Bengals need more swings. They in the draft, they just do. And we found a way to get plenty last week. I'm interested to see how this week unfolds.
Some people are saying that there's some audio issues. Some people say it's unsynced. I don't really want to restart the stream and have it, kind of mess up the stream and have us have to restart it. But one thing I could just encourage, I don't know if you guys have tried to restart your YouTube. Sometimes YouTube is unsynced that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think we got Marissa in the studio. Marissa, if you let me know if it's working properly or not. If not, we'll probably just have to Japanese Godzilla film it. Have to just be a little bit off. But
you do a lot of board talk too.
Yeah, man. But yeah, man. And I appreciate that Akilla the Great. I feel like it's been a very negative week, and I think it's like somebody Akilla says y'all doing it great. Y'all doing it great. You know what I mean? I just think it's important to just cut your own grass, worry about your own self, don't worry about other people. It's easy to be jealous, of what other people are doing in this industry and in this arena. We should really try not to worry about what other people with the competition is doing. We should try to be us and true to ourselves. So if people don't like it, that's fine. You can block us. Don't have to follow our content. If people do like it, cool, great. We appreciate you. But at the end of the day, this is not about making friends in the industry. This is about, giving it out for the people, man, people that want us to touch on different topics and have our writers, react and respond to different rumors and stuff like that is out there. So, it is what it is. You can't be friends with everybody, can't please everybody. It is. If everybody like you in life, you're doing something wrong. If you got haters, you're probably doing something right. So I want to touch on, speaking of haters, speaking on doing things differently. Bengals, Cade Blackmore came out in response to Trey Hendrickson. Well, not in response to Trey Hendrickson, but more so talking about Trey Hendrickson. And I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but she just have something along the lines of at some point he's got to be happy with what he's making. It's bold. I get it. It's a negotiation though. Mm-hmm. It's like it's gonna be a lot of give and take. I do think that there's sometimes you gotta just kind of bite your tongue. Trey has made it no secret that he wants to be a Bengal. He wants to be here for life, right? But he also talked about being paid properly. And I feel like it's hard to argue with a player who's put up 17 and a half sacks the last 2 years.
Yeah.
But the other part is, you did sign an extension here. That probably was a mistake. You probably could have just forced their hand and forced them to sign you. But at the end of the day, man, I feel like a lot was made of this. Made out of what she said. I also think she could have chose her words a lot better. But I think, again, going back to what I just said a couple seconds ago, you're not gonna make everybody happy. You're not gonna be, everyone's not gonna appreciate sort of when you do speak or when you do speak. I just think that we don't hear from the Blackburns, Katie, Troy, Duke, even quite often. So when they do speak, everything that they say is probably viewed by a magnifying glass. That all being said, I do think Trey needs to be properly compensated for the work that he has done. I don't know why we're playing games with, your game-changing NFL sack leader, a guy that truly is the one difference maker on your defense, has proven to be that. I just think at some point, as the Bengals say, at some point he has to be happy. I think at some point you have to just show up and pay the guy. You paid T. Higgins, right? You went out the norms of what other teams may have done or say they would have done. Well, I don't know what the fuss is about paying your defensive end. I think when I look at it, man, I just say like get Trey under contract, get it wrapped up, get it corrected, man. Get that guy in here long term if he wants to be here long term. I feel like this weird doom and gloom thing that everybody keeps doing of like, oh well, Trey's 30, he's gonna fall off a cliff soon. It's like when if we're saying no player by the time they get 30 deserves to get paid, there's a lot of players in the league that probably shouldn't be getting paid at this point of their age. I just feel like Trey hasn't shown you signs of him slowing down. Back-to-back 17 and a half seasons, and this is what little to no help on the defensive line. So I don't know, Evan, what are your thoughts? I've been yapping a lot.
Yeah, man. I've been pretty staunch against paying Trey the Myles Garrett, the Max Crosby contract, and said myself that if he was asking for top market dollar, that was going to be a tough sell because he wasn't younger like Max Crosby and hasn't necessarily been as exceptional against the run as guys like Myles Garrett, on top of being a dominant pass rusher. The big thing with me, man, is the framing of this by Katie Blackburn. Like you said, it could have just been poor word choice, but if you're playing hardball negotiations and your stance is you have 1 year on your deal left, we can franchise you after that, we have 2 years of control and you can't do anything about it, then you say that. You don't get to kind of go, oh, well, we offered him a deal and, him and his agent are just really kind of being greedy and they should just be happy with what we got. Like that's because when you hear him go on Pat McAfee and he talks about wanting financial security and talks about wanting guaranteed money and being willing to make concessions and how much money he's going to get, saying, I'm not asking for Myles Garrett money. I'm not asking for Max Crosby money. I'm asking for less than top of market. All I'm asking for is a little more security. You've already kind of broken from your we're not guaranteeing money with Joe Burrow, with Jamar Chase, and even with T. Higgins to some degree. I think if you are the Bengals, you can take care of the guy who suddenly stopped after he had a trade request out and said he was going to sit out. And he seems to have claimed that they kind of said, hey, we're going to take care of you. It's just not right now, but go out there and do your thing. And we'll take care of you when the time comes around. Well, the time comes around and everyone's saying oh yeah, well he has a year left on his deal and the franchise tag. So Trey's just a sucker for believing the Bengals that they were going to take care of him. Is that our stance? That's not right. And again, man, the guy's not asking for a 4-year extension at 35 per, right? If you're talking, okay, yeah, give him a three-year extension, 32 a year, right? And you guarantee 60, 70% of that. I think he's happy. I think he takes that. And then on top of that, his cap number is $18.5 million this year. If you sign him while he still has 1 year on his deal, you can allocate some of that cap hit and some of that guaranteed money to this year, to where suddenly instead of paying him $32 million, now for the next 4 years, when you're like, hey, we don't want to be paying him top of market, well, guess what? Instead of $32 million, you're paying him $28 million a year. and you're paying him 26 this year, right? Those are just some made up numbers, but that's the kind of like ballpark we're talking about. And suddenly Trey Hendrickson for the next 3 years on 28 million, when you have no alternative plan in place, no proof of concept with Miles Murphy, and in seemingly no intention to add to your edge position, even if you draft a rookie early, what is your plan at edge 2 years from now? Because if you're not going to give Trey the money, and you were already kind of, I don't know how we're going to do the guaranteed money, and we have to structure things weird with T. Higgins. Okay, how are you going to tell me your solution to Trey Hendrickson walking is we're going to draft somebody and hope they pan out, or we're going to sign somebody? No, you're not. Because if you're going to get a top 3, top 4 edge rusher in free agency, you got to be willing to shell out the guaranteed money or structure the contract that the other teams will. So what is your plan to replace Trey Hendrickson in that next 2-3 years? And lastly, on top of that, that cap number of 28-ish mil looks even better 2-3 years, even like 2-3 contracts from now. As soon as someone signs again for 34, 35 mil, and you're paying Trey Hendrickson like he's the 12th best pass rusher, well, now you're cooking with gas. Now you're looking all right. Now you don't feel bad about making that investment in older players. So that's just kind of where I land with it, where, look, he's trying to make concessions. I think the Bengals have not earned the belief that they are negotiating in good faith and willing to break from what they do to make concessions. It seems like they've been very traditional. This is the umpteenth time we've heard that there have been communication issues and negotiations with your stars over the last 5 years. Why are we playing these games? Why do we do this? Why, when we kind of make these backroom deals with these players and tell them we're going to take care of them and, hey, just trust the process and we do it our way and we take care of our own, does that not seem to happen as soon as it comes contract time? That's my question.
Logan, Daniel?
Just in general, like with the whole
Y'all
trade.
cooking, I'm just chilling.
No,
Back listening.
I think with
Okay.
the trade thing in general, like it's just getting to a point where like it needs to become more clear. Like we assumed it looked like he was gonna be gone, and then it looked like he was gonna be back, and now it's like we're back to like, well, we don't really know. Well, we have a massive draft coming up. They need so many things, and if Trey's not gonna be a part of it, or if the trade question is going to be even larger than it is now, that's going to drastically affect how they're going to be selecting here in a couple weeks. Like it changes so many things. So like they need to come to a resolution, or at least make the picture abundantly clear one way or the other sooner rather than later.
It's for me, the frustrating part is they're letting the league, it seems like, kind of dictate everything. Same thing with interior offensive linemen. For me personally, I'm not going to let the draft dictate who I add in free agency. That's me. And I think that the way that the same thing Zac Taylor said, hey, let's see how the draft plays, and then we'll go from there. So they're looking at it as, okay, well, if offensive lineman falls to 17, okay, maybe falls to 48. Same thing. I think they're kind of doing the same thing maybe with Trey. Like, okay, well, let's see who we get at 17. Maybe we get something. Maybe we don't. If we don't, we're not going to, if we do get somebody, maybe we don't re-sign Trey. And that's the frustrating thing. I think you have to get the guys in your building and keep them there, not just let who you draft dictate it. Because respectfully, whoever I draft at 17 should not dictate if I want Trey on my team or not. If it's an edge rusher, you can still have an edge rusher opposite Trey Hendrickson. If it's not edge rusher, damn sure you need Trey Hendrickson. So I feel like they're letting the draft kind of dictate their thought process when I don't think they should be.
For sure. Listen, I've been on record before saying that I think it's a backwards ass way of dealing. I think they do things very interesting. The philosophy is everything is reactionary. It's not actionary. If things aren't working out well, you go out there and you draft a guy to replace the guy that you should actually be trying to, in good faith, negotiate with. They did it with Jesse Bates and Dax Hill. They're in all likelihood might do it with Trey Hendrickson, or it might not, according to Paul Dehner Jr.'s recent article about them apparently prioritizing offensive tackle / offensive guard currently. I think that's a backwards ass way of doing things. You're plotting on the demise of an Orlando Brown Jr. already, which is interesting to me, instead of actually focusing on the here and now of what could help you, when you could actually go out there and probably sign a guy that might want to play here at the interior offensive line position, and probably at a low, cheap cost that probably steps in day one and is the best guard on the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll touch on that a little bit more. But for me, it would be an epic failure if the Bengals would have went in the first round this year and drafted an offensive lineman, especially considering the neglect at the defensive line position. You're sitting there banking on the potential of Joseph Asai stepping up again, right, this year from 5.5 sack performance that happened in the last 7.5 games, whatever the case may be, against lesser talent. and the Cam Sample making a full return from the Achilles tear. I think this is wishful thinking. I'm hopeful that Miles Murphy turns into something in the National Football League. However, none of those players that I just named should stop the Bengals from saying, hey, we need to draft an edge and upgrade the position. You can try to talk yourself out of the deal. You can try to talk yourself out of, hey, we need to go out there and sign draft off a defensive lineman all you want, but you're going to find yourself in the same shitty situation. The fact of the matter is, at 17, you'll probably have the chance to draft a difference maker on the defensive line this year. That's what it is. You'll probably have your chance to draft a James Pierce Jr. You'll probably have your chance to draft a Mike Green, depending on if you can look past his off the field issues, or a Walter Nolan, or insert next said defensive dominant lineman in there. The spot for me, I don't know why the Bengals are just so hard pressed to be right in this situation. Draft the talent that is in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Draft the talent that is in front of you. I don't care who I have on the defensive line. Competition breeds success. You either eat or you die. As simple as that. That's what the Eagles do. That's what the Ravens do. That's what some of these elite teams have done, right? Make no mistake about it. Your Super Bowl run looks like it was luck at this point. And it was in large part, it had to do with Joe Burrow. It had nothing to do with, we drafted. You do not get brownie points for drafting Joe Burrow first overall.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get brownie points.
We nailed that pick.
Right. Yeah. You don't get brownie points of T. Higgins falling in your lap. You do get brownie points off of Logan Wilson being an absolute gem and drafting him in the 3rd round.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get brownie points off the Atlanta Falcons being stupid and idiotic, thinking Kyle Pitts was a more surefire pick than a Jamar Chase. You do not get brownie points off of drafting these guys that any other team in your position would have drafted. Joe Burrow goes first overall 100 out of 100 times in that draft, bro.
Yeah.
100. He threw 60 touchdown passes. You do not get brownie points for that. You don't. And the one time you went all in, you made a deep run. You made it to the Super Bowl. And ever since then, you've been scared to lay your nuts on the table and say, this is what we're doing. And then you're shocked, wow, the results that we're getting, we can't believe them. Why are we shocked? Since the Super Bowl run, you have not made the same concerted effort to get better. And now you're saying, well, guys, because we were stupid in the way that we structured our contracts this time around, you know what? We're not going to go in again. Why? You still have money. You still have the ability right now to go out there and make significant upgrades. But yet and still, you'll sit at the owners' league meeting and say, I think we're done. Why? Loser's mentality. Loser way to go about it. I'm not co-signing that bullshit, just being honest with you. It's an ass backwards way of doing business. Simple as that. People don't got to like it, but it is what it is. Which brings me to my next point. Right now, the Bengals guards on the football team, correct me if I'm wrong, is Jackson Kirkland, Cody Ford, Cordell Volson, Lucas Patrick. One of those guys got benched last. Matter of fact, 2 of those guys got benched last year at one point or another.
Yep.
Right? The other guy is an undrafted player. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. So, I was logging on my TikTok,
mm-hmm.
and I didn't realize Dalton Risner commented on it. At first, I thought it was bullshit. I was like, "There's no way Dalton Risner commented on it."
Right? Yeah. What's he doing on
First of all,
here?
what's he doing on TikTok? I'm not even on TikTok. So I go on TikTok, and he says, "Yeah, man, yeah, bro, I love this. Agreed 100%." Then it was, "I would love to be a Bengal." Hold that thought. I love that. I love that comment for him. That is probably as direct as you can possibly be. Here you are having a interior offensive line. By the way, he had back injury last year. He kind of started the season a little late. I think week 7 or something like that. He has always been a very good pass blocker. Merce, if you could pull up those exact PFF grades from your Evan, one of you. Left gave up no sacks last year, had 0 penalties. I think he had 16 or 15 hurries. But outside of that, Dalton Risner was an absolute dog for the Vikings. An absolute dog for the Vikings. And you have a clear need on the interior of the offensive line. You don't like to pay premium money for guards. This is a guy that's not going to what? Cost money, right? As a guard. Not going to cost significant money, but he's a clear upgrade over the guys you have in the building. Dalton Risner steps in day 1. I don't think this is a hot take. Dalton Risner steps in day 1 and immediately is the best guard on the Bengals.
Agreed.
That ain't saying much, by the way. That's not saying much.
But it's still true.
But it's still true.
I got the stats right
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
398 pass blocking snaps, 1 sack allowed, and on true pass sets, which matters because the Bengals do a lot more of the pro style true dropbacks and not so much of the play action or the screen action, right? Looking at just true pass sets, he had 208 sets last year with the Vikings, 0 sacks allowed, 2 hits, 13 hurries.
Yep.
So not making contact with the quarterback. Sure, there's a little bit of pressure there, but for a free agent guard that you can get right now that's turning 30 and still has plenty of tread left on the tires, you have a coach who's worked with him in multiple spots. Like that seems like an easy common sense signing there. And maybe they're waiting until after the draft, like they are kind of with Jermaine Pratt. Maybe they're waiting for the chips to fall on the table and then, the same way, if we can't get a linebacker or someone else can't get a linebacker, they'll reach out about Jermaine Pratt, right? Maybe if after the draft, if we don't like where we landed with an interior guard or we found a tackle that doesn't have the guard versatility that just fell in our lap, that's a way that we can
what my
get the
issue
guard.
is that bro?
You're waiting and letting someone else have the opportunity.
Well, not even that.
Like,
I could get on co-sign that. I can get on board with that if they've done that in the past. They don't. Usually,
you have to believe it. That's the benefit of the doubt of you operating in a smart fashion. And you just can't do that.
Traditionally, the guys that they enter the draft with, that's their roster.
Right.
That's been their roster. They're not smart that way. They think that after free agency's over, we're on to the next segment. After that's over, we're on to the next segment. The Bengals literally saw their cornerback room get decimated and said, you know what? I got a bright idea. Let's claim a guy off of waivers. Let him potentially go through a bunch of teams, and then let's put a waiver claim in on that guy. That's their MO. That's how they do things. So I could operate in that belief. But also you're putting that player at a disadvantage because it's like, okay, well, they're a free agent. Don't you want them to get acclimated to Cincinnati? Don't you want them to kind of move here and figure out their life situation before they get – let's call it what it is, though. You have a guy in Dalton Risner who clearly – and by the way, I will continue to wage the war on non-traditional media versus traditional media. Listen, if I was on the Bengals payroll, if I was covering the team, I would try to like sell you on the Lucas Patrick signing. I would try to tell you, well, no, the Bengals did make a move. They went out and signed Lucas Patrick. Let me be very, very clear, unequivocally clear. You see what I did there? You like that word? Let me be extremely clear. What camera am I at, Jimmy? This one, that one, this one? Okay, let me make sure I'm super clear. Dalton Risner clears Lucas Patrick every day of the week and 10 times on Sunday. Does anybody disagree with that? Right.
Nope.
He clears him every single day of the week. It ain't even close. Okay. So if Dalton Risner stepped in on the Bengals right now, he'd be the best guard. That isn't me trying to sell you a bridge. That's me being the God's honest truth. He was a second-round pick. The Bengals liked him in his respective draft. And guess what? I hate to be that guy. I hate to act like I know everything because I don't know everything. If I knew everything, I'd probably be getting paid tens of millions of dollars to be a coach or to be in the front office. But all I can do is offer you is I digest a lot of football, a lot of film, week in and week out. This is my job. This is what I do. So let me just say this. I was the same guy that pounded and beat at the table, and I said, hey, Bengals, go out there and sign Mike Gesicki. Not because, oh, my God, we need a good blocking tight end, dude. No. I said go out there and sign Mike Gesicki because it's very clear that the Bengals offense, they like to prioritize receiving tight ends, right? They don't utilize necessarily the traditional tight end the way that we've seen fit because they also don't prioritize the run game. So the tight end whatever tight end that we see the Bengals grab, respectfully, I don't give a damn if they're a good blocker. I care if they're a good pass catcher. I was the same guy that pounded that table. And then I had people telling me, well, Hayden Hurst is better than Mike Gesicki. CJ Uzomah had a great season. Joe Burrow makes everybody look good. But I was trying to tell y'all, Mike Gesicki is a guy that produced with the Miami Dolphins his first 2 years before McDaniels got there because he doesn't believe in tight end position at all. He would do great in this team, in this offense. He excelled with the Bengals. He wound up cashing in on a 3-year deal with the Bengals because it made sense. So let me say this again. Do not tell me, well, Mike Gesicki is a good run blocker, dude. Because here's my one caveat. What's my one response to that? Do the Bengals commit to running the football, or are they a passing first team? And even if him being not the strongest run blocker, I think he's a better run blocker than Lucas Patrick, Cordell Volson, and Cody Ford. He can do it. He's not elite at it, but he's damn good in the pass block. The exact thing that what the Bengals do consistently, he is great at. It's his strong suit. It's what he does. Mm-hmm. So to me, You have a guard in Dalton Risner saying, hey, hi, I'm sitting out here.
I'd like to play for you.
I would love to be a Bengal. His wife with 1.1 million followers on TikTok. Put the eye emoji. I would love to be a Bengal. And him and I we're working on something too. I'm trying to do a little interview with him too. Like you have it. Like I am doing God's work for you, Bengals. You don't even have to ask him, are you interested in being a Bengal? He's telling you, I would want to be a Bengal. Reach out to the guy. Shit, I'm about to tell Dalton, he follows me now too. I'm about to tell him, yo, just reach out to the Bengals. Do what Orlando Brown did. Reach out.
Yeah.
Reach out to the Bengals. Tell them that you want to play for them. And Bengals sign him. It's that simple. It's not that difficult. Why is there so much pull back to get like good at the guard position? Well, there are people saying, well, the Bengals aren't interested in him because he might be remember that one film where he was yelling at Brett Ripien on the sideline? What? The Bengals had an offensive tackle that cursed Zac Taylor out and left practice early. I don't know if you guys remember that guy. The Bills tackle, the one the Bengals got. Yeah, that happened.
Glenn.
That was a real thing. Cordy Glenn. Don't tell me about players not being quote unquote locker room fits and I have never heard anything bad about Dalton Risner. I asked my guy Benjamin Albright, what's the issue? Is he a bad locker room guy? No. Does he love football? Yes. So what's the issue? I have no idea what it is. And the dude is literally saying, hey, I want to play for the Bengals. Bengals, this is probably as easy as it comes to a free throw. It's easy. It's sitting right there for you. You don't want to invest big money at the guard spot. This is another guy very similar on the Mike Gesicki trajectory. He's been playing well throughout his career. No team has committed long-term to him. It's not like you could have been saying the same thing about Mike Gesicki. Well, if Mike Gesicki's so good, why weren't people committing long-term to him? Every situation is different. Well, he came to Cincinnati and he gave him life. Give Dalton Risner a chance, please. Give him a shot. Give him a phone call. Stop pigeonholing yourself. Stop trying to be the greatest people to invent the next greatest way to do things. He's sitting right there for you. It's a match made in heaven. It's not rocket science. I am not saying I'm the smartest guy in a room, but I love football. I watch a lot of film. This guy would be a clear upgrade for the Bengals, and he would not cost a lot. Lucas Patrick, it's a damn shame that you guys made him a priority over a Dalton Risner. This is my last part. People might think I'm going crazy saying this, but I'm annoyed seeing the same thing. We have the same conversation every single offseason. We have it all the time. And I'm tired of having the same conversation. Give the guy a shot. If he works out, great. You don't even got to give me credit. You don't have to tag the show. You don't got to tag my name. Just give Dalton Risner a shot, and I guarantee he'll shock you. Anyway, let's get started on this damn mock draft, Dale.
All right. I'm excited.
How can you not be after that? Got us going, Malik. I love it.
All right. Speed is good. Everything's good.
Let's get into it.
All right. Let me know if you guys want to stop anywhere.
Titans on the clock. Cam Ward. There we go.
Cam Ward
Brown.
goes to the Titans.
Travis Hunter, too. Shadur. The Giants.
This is all feeling pretty good right about now.
I like the fact that this draft is actually shaping up much better.
Ashton Genty, that's a Pete Carroll, Marshawn Lynch just pick. Yeah, right there.
Well, that's a good pick. Jets get some value there. Jade Barron. That's the first one. It's a little interesting.
Oh, and by the way, I
I've seen him moving up the board a little bit.
I texted a high-ranking person for the Bengals that tweet today because I want to make sure they see that. By the way, Jahad Campbell to the Niners makes a lot of sense.
Really interesting.
Ted McMillan 12 is perfect for the Cowboys.
Picking up some steam.
It's perfect for the Cowboys. Matthew Gordon to the Colts is kind of dumb, but Jalen Walker, Falcons keeping him in state. Shamar Stewart. Wow. Now we got options.
Wow.
All right.
All right, Malik, I'm going to ask you the question I ask you every single week.
Mm-hmm.
Are we drafting like the Bengals or are we drafting like us?
We are drafting like us.
Okay.
We are drafting like us. I would say that I listen, I think the Bengals need to leave no stone unturned. There's a lot of names on here that have not been on the board the last recent weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I love some of the names that are on this board. The last 2 weeks, just to give everybody a little bit of an update, we have legitimately drafted James Pierce Jr. I want us to be different this time around, only for the sake of argument. By the way, if James Pierce Jr., even though I think he needs to work on his hands, if he's sitting there, I would draft him a lot of times out of a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Green is still sitting here. Mike Green hasn't made it to us many times.
I think this is the first one.
I think it's the first time he's made
think
it
it's
to
the first
us.
one.
So there's a lot of names on here that I like, but I'm going to shut up because I've been ranting a lot.
Who we want to start with here, Danny boy?
Trade back options too.
There's 30 of them. I was going to point that there's 30
I'm just
apparently.
saying.
I don't know if
So,
that's just like some.
I think this is a good kind of just overall
this is
conversation to have.
everybody.
Is that I would you guys agree with me in the sense that like you've got your kind of 3 tiers of the first round where you got your blue chippers, you know, your top 3-5 picks depending on the year. You've got your next tier of just very, very talented, kind of clean prospects who have the testing, the age, the pedigree, the production, right? And then you get into that kind of best of the rest tier of like first round talents where they do have the talent, but they do have one outstanding question mark, whether that's prototypical size, whether that's elite athleticism, whether that's positional value, right? And I think the Bengals are really here right at the start of this tier. And I know you guys were talking about a trade back and did so last week. I think that is definitely the optimal strategy for the Bengals, and they would be wise to do that with a limited number of picks. I think a lot of people want to trade back, though, in this instance. And I don't know how many teams want to trade up
Just
right
throw
now
this
for
out
these
here.
guys.
This is breaking news, by the way.
Oh, Lord.
Dalton Risner just commented. He said the Bengals have not reached out to him throughout this entire free agency process. So I just want to throw that out there because we said I would update people on this. His response was nope. They have not reached out to him. So sorry.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, with that in mind, I think the trade back is open. I think a lot of people would. It's going to be hard to find someone who wants to move up for a quarterback in this spot necessarily, which is generally what you want to do. But maybe someone sees someone here who is a head and shoulders above the rest prospect.
For me, I'm with you. I think you have to entertain the trade back. When I look at this, the first conversation, this is just, I've seen the offensive line conversation. I think that's where I personally want to start. I don't know if Banks or Gray Zabel is worth the value at 17. That's me. When I look at how the offensive line entire, draft class plays out, when I look at round 2, who shows up, right? I think there's a lot of value in round 2 for the offensive lineman. And when I watch these guys, and maybe, you guys can sell me on it, but for me, that's where my mind goes. Hey, I'm crossing off offensive lineman with everybody else on the board because Kelvin Banks Jr. he's athletic. He's good. He could end up being the bookend left tackle of the future, in the future. But I see the value of the way the draft is played out right now. I see the pass rushers, and I'd much rather draft a Pierce, Mike Green, Malachi Starks, or Walter Nolan over the offensive line. So for me, offensive line is off the board, and I'm really penciling in. The conversation for me is it's James Pierce, Mike Green, and Malachi Starks, even Walter Nolan. But
I think I just wanted to touch on Starks a little bit here. We haven't really got to discuss him too much, and if we're not trying, if we were to stick here, I think Starks would just be the direction I go. I just think he is going to be I'm very, very, very confident in him being a successful NFL player. I know he didn't necessarily run and do all these things the best at the combine, just pure straight athleticism, but he moves, he transitions from spot to spot so well, which is one of the most important attributes for people in the secondary, especially at the safety position. He's so quick. There's no wasted movements. He's so fluid in the secondary. And that is just so awesome to see. He can tell how differently he moves. Again, he might not have that straight line speed that some of these other people do, but he's a guy that makes plays. He can play in the slot. He can play in the box. He can play deep. And the Bengals just haven't really had a safety in so long since Jesse Bates has left that has been able to do everything at a high level. And I just think Starks is, again, I'm just very confident in him being a very good NFL player. And that goes a long way when I'm selecting, regardless of position of need or anything. I'm very confident in Malachi Starks. I think he can come in and kick Geno Stone to the bench or however we want to handle it. You can put them all on the field. He can play in the slot. He can play so many different roles. He's just a very good football player that's had multiple years of production at an SEC school, 5-star recruit, checks so many boxes, big name school for the Bengals. Yeah. There's so many things to like from Malachi Starks here.
So, and I think that he should be one of the top 3 options here. And when I look at Starks, it's simple for me. This dude, like you said, 5-star recruit, played at the biggest school, played in the biggest games, was in college football playoffs, and something that the Bengals like is this dude has played a ton of snaps and he's played everywhere, right? And also the dude is 21 years old. He is young. So I can definitely hear the Malachi Starks conversation. For me, I'm not the biggest fan of him. He didn't have the greatest of years, but for me, if I were to draft Starks, I'm going to hang my hat on, hey, he can play slot corner. He can play the deep safety. He can do it all. And I personally think that he has value as a slot corner as well as
Yeah.
being the deep safety. And one of the notes for the NFL Combine, he may not have ran the fastest, but when you look at the drills, who was the guy in the drills, the actual positional drills that matter? Who was the fastest player? It was
stood
Malachi
out.
Stark. So
Yep.
I definitely,
He's a great tackler too. He comes downhill phenomenally for a safety. He just does a lot of things well, man. I think if I'm sticking put here, if that's what we decide to do, that's who I'd be arguing for. That doesn't mean we still need to check out, what we would do, how far we'd want to move down. But I'm a big Starks guy here.
So I'm curious, Evan and Logan, Walter Nolan, what's your guys' thoughts? Is he in consideration for you guys here?
So this is the tough part, right? Because, and this mainly applies here for James Pierce, where I don't put a lot of stock into medical rumors and personal off-field rumors until generally like the beast comes out with Dane Brugler, where he has a lot more concrete sourced NFL opinions on this. But James Pierce might be an exception for me because it is consistently from multiple different sources throughout this process. It's not been great for him. He was definitely very successful against the run and the pass. There's concern about, is he going to be a true 3-down player for you immediately in the NFL? On top of these questions, I think that's enough for me to kind of push him a little bit behind these other prospects here. I definitely look at Mike Green here, and I think he is I think he would be kind of in that tier 2 of the first round without the off-field stuff. But as much as I like Malachi Starks as a prospect, I look at safety in terms of positional value. I look at some of the safeties and linebackers and guards that are available later. And these are positions that you generally can find later. It's the first round where you have to find the most starting corners, most starting tackles, most starting edge players, because that's where the guys who have the measurables to succeed at these freaky positions that only so many people are that big and that fast and that strong, especially for positions like tackle, are found. I think that leads me to going, hey, Mike Green is that kind of freak edge rusher that you can get in this situation. Even I disagree with you about Kelvin Banks. I do like him a lot. I love his size. I love his athleticism. I think he kicks in and is immediately an instant impact starter for you at guard. I think the only question you have about him at tackle is his arm length. And if you're kicking him inside, he's able to use that power. He anchors really well against a bull rush, so you don't have worries about him kind of taking on some of those thicker, more stout interior players. I really like him as a potential to come in and immediately take care of guard, as well as maybe solve your future problem of Orlando Brown. And you can solve a problem now while also drafting a very talented player and preparing for the future. And I think that marries the best of need, opportunity, both present and future. And I think that makes it really intriguing to me.
For sure. And I think for me, and this is where I'll look at it, I think that Mike Green, when I look at this and the conversation of a Banks versus these guys here is, hey, I'm just concerned, and this is where my stance will be when I look at this board. I'm in on Mike Green, and my concern with going with the Banks, I agree. I think Banks steps in and is immediately your best interior offensive lineman for sure, and I think he could develop and be your bookend offensive tackle. My concern with going with Banks is, hey, am I going to get a Mike Green later on? And maybe we could make the case for JT or Josiah Stewart or Jack Sawyer. If we're confident in those guys in round 2,
I will not be.
and if we're confident in those guys in round 2, then I'm game for Kelvin Banks Jr. But for me, when I look at Mike Green, and since this is what we would do, the concern with him is, hey, he has had one dominant season, and that was this past season. And he has kind of the off the field concerns. But when I look at him, this is a guy where he is not just a pure pass rusher. This is a guy who has had major success as a run defender. He's got the strength to do it, and he may not be the biggest guy at 6'3" or 6'2 3/4, but he was the most productive player on his team. And when you look at what other coaches said, many coaches opposing coaches raved about him because he was the guy to game plan against. And when I look at this entire board, I want a game record, and I think that Mike Green is the game record here. So I could hear the Banks conversation. If it were me, I like Mike Green.
I still think Nolan deserves to be in the conversation as well here. I mean, we're just talking about players in general. Like, I'm pretty confident if Walter Nolan was drafted, he might be the best defensive tackle on the roster immediately.
Right.
And when you're just talking about when you draft them and like just how they get on the field and just the talent they bring to the room, I think if you can ever draft anybody at any position that comes in the most talent in that room, they should be in the conversation. That's why I just think Walter Nolan we kind of always forget about him a little bit. I just think he deserves to be in the conversation a little more than we always kind of give him credit for.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, and we can, who do you guys want to nail down? Because for me, I think it's between Mike Green now and Walter Nolan. Are you guys, what's your guys' thoughts? Because I think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of quiet.
Yeah.
I'll say this.
I'm waiting for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a little bit of a PR stuff too. Like, when it comes to Mike Green with
Yeah.
the field stuff. But if we're excluding all that right now, we're talking because he's definitely not off the Bengals board. They went to the pro day. They talked to him at the pro day. Talked to him. He was one of the first teams the Bengals met with as well at the combine. The interest in Mike Green is real, and I heard that throughout combine week too. This is the first time he's here on this board.
Yes, it is.
For me, the conversation, if we're talking the conversation between Mike Green and if we're talking the conversation between Mike Green and James Pierce Jr., I feel like Mike Green is probably the more polished pass rusher.
Yeah.
He's better with his hands. He has the productivity.
Mhm.
I feel like James Pierce Jr.'s weakness is his hands, but I think his I do think he has the elite production as well. But then you look at James Pierce Jr., he has the big school acumen, obviously, to his resume. This is tough. This is tough. I'm not gonna lie. This is very, very tough. Then you also insert Kelvin Banks into the equation, right? Kelvin Banks at probably moving him to interior or offensive lineman as a spot is something that is interesting as well. Man, this is tough.
Yeah.
I probably would lean. Here's the issue I'm having. I don't think Malachi Starks is that game-changing safety that we all think he might be. This was a down year for him. He could be trying to protect draft stock, but I also think that kind of hurt his draft stock because he didn't have a lot of those flash plays. And I give him a little bit of grace because I feel like a lot of guys on that Georgia defense kind of struggled this year. To some degree, they didn't look necessarily their overall dominant self. But I just feel like is Malachi Starks going to come in and unseat a Geno Stone year one?
And
I don't know if that's the case. I don't think that is the case year one. And you're not going to cut Geno Stone at this point. You're not.
You have such a lack of resources dedicated to the defense right now, I think is a big thing too, because you're already spending $20-30 million less. Actually, it might have changed recently with all the new contract info. And you obviously have tons of spots on the defense to fill. Whereas you could probably use another inline tight end, and sure, you'd like a guard and like a second running back, but these are all luxury picks.
Yeah.
Whereas on defense, you sorely need help at linebacker. You sorely need help all along the defensive line. You sorely need help at corner to help assure your depth. That stands out to me, and I think that has to weigh heavily. I know we want to draft the best players and ignore need altogether, but I don't know how you can't see the difference. And I do think you have to factor in a little bit. It doesn't need to influence your entire decision to where you make radical jumps on your draft board. But when you're doing tiebreakers, when things are so close like this, I do think you really have to consider who can help you right now. And I think the coaching staff will be doing that, because if they don't do well this year, that has to weigh really heavily on their minds.
And with the Trey Hendrickson thing still in flux, for me, I feel like Mike Green has to be the pick here. I think that's where I stand with it personally. I think there's a lot of guys you consider here. I think Donovan Azaraku you can consider here. But
he is really light.
Yeah.
But he's also really long.
Yes.
And very athletic.
I think it's very hard to ignore Mike Green's production and what he did. And I think there's a reason why he has been hasn't been here the last two times. I feel like he's a pick, and unless we're considering serious to trade back, that's the only thing for me. But I'm on Mike Green here.
Yeah, I think, and I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Like for me, I can't make a strong enough case for Nolan right now because of my concerns with him as a pass rusher. And when we look at the other, like Donovan Azaraku, I think Green and Pierce, their ceilings are high because of their pure athletic ability and Green's pure production. So for me, it really is, hey, it's Mike Green all the way, unless someone can sell on Walter Nolan for me.
Or Kelvin Banks. I mean, there's a lot of guys you could sell on.
For
I don't
sure.
think it's necessarily a thing of like, it's just them or bust. I don't think.
Oh, for sure.
I just think that for what I think when we talk about best player available right now, I think that the best player available just happens to also meet need.
Yeah, which eliminates the trade down in that scenario
Right.
too. When best player available meets a big need, there's no point to risk it.
I think there's I would consider a trade in most scenarios, but the fact that Mike Green is sitting here, I'm kind of like at this point, I'm not interested in a trade right now because I think it's a luxury that he's here right now.
I agree. All right, we got our poll. Said 51% says Mike Green, 13% James Pierce Jr., and 15% Walter Nolan. So, all right, with the 17th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, your Cincinnati Bengals select Mike Green, edge rusher for Marshall.
And to touch on that a little bit more, Mike Green, again, I don't think Mike Green, I don't think there's a player on the team right now that's stopping me from drafting Mike Green. Personally.
No.
Like people think, we got Joseph Sideback. That's a year deal. If he has a breakout year, but you can bet your ass David Mulligetta is going to try to get him to cash in on the biggest deal possible. And even if Joseph Osai does great, right? If Trey Hendrickson is only on a 1-year deal here, at the end of the day, well, maybe you bring that guy back, and now you have your 2 edge rushers of the future. You're in a better position. Or maybe Miles Murphy ascends and he looks great.
Yeah.
Well, now you have that guy under lock. Tyler Booker lands with the Ravens. That's a great pick.
I know there's been James Pierce to Washington is phenomenal. Banks went to the Texans, which is talk about a massive need right there.
Absolutely.
Too.
That's
Chiefs with the fun little upside pick. Eagles, Luther Burden's fun too.
I be honest, I don't love Nick.
dude. I'm glad you said that because dear God, I get the same vibes
Browns,
as Obi Melifonwu.
Yeah, okay.
I get look at this big,
massive.
super athletic safety who's going to be so rangy, and it's just like Sanders. Man, so like, why weren't you better?
Yeah.
Why weren't you better?
Yeah.
Like more consistent. I worry about kind of.
You got to figure out how they're going to play them. Projecting guys like that is so difficult.
You really have to have a direct plan, and I just like I see too much
the Jets in the second.
Jets and Dart moves up. Have we seen? Jets
I don't think so. Not this early.
The Jets.
Landon Jackson.
That's a good pick for the 49ers as well. There,
Jackson,
Xavier Watts always.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's Lou, man. Lou's telling us something. Trey Amos there to the Falcons is fun. Maxwell, thank God he's off the board. Donovan Jackson. Okay, here we are.
Wow. All right.
Here we are.
Okay, can I say one thing, guys, real quick?
Yeah.
Again, the trade back scenario is interesting to me here. It really is.
Yeah.
But I want to just touch on something. Go scroll down, Daniel, please.
Down?
No, back up to the top. Yeah. We've ignored the cornerback position.
I'm looking at it too.
Yep.
And
on my
with Dax Hill, you talk about Cam Taylor Britt in the contract year. You don't really have a surefire thing. I understand you love your guys in the back, and maybe they wind up having great years, and that's great. Javon Revel is coming off of a torn ACL, so therefore you don't have to rush him back with the young secondary. I feel like Javon Revel here and any other, if he was healthy, he'd probably be a first-round pick.
He would be.
Or he'd be going super early in the second.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a pick that I can 100% get on board with. And he's a guy that I think long rangey, you like him. You probably are drafting. I love what it says. Revel is the ideal day 2 athletic alien to draft. I need to reach out to Trevor and see who wrote that because that's a great way to start that.
Mostly.
But man,
I
listen. I think that this dude. I think with him, you potentially draft your future corner 1.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say about just the corner room in general is, I feel like you can say a lot of the same things about Benjamin Morrison as well. If he didn't get hurt. He's a little bit less. He's much lesser. I don't say much lesser of an athlete, but he's not the athlete. He doesn't have the size Revel has, but he's got the bigger school production, and he's just good. Also, so I think there's a few corners here. Darian Porter again makes sense, but we know Morrison's got the connection with Golden as well.
The one thing I'll say about Morrison is
that
this will be something I'm looking for in Dane Brugler's beast when it comes out. Is he's probably going to have a lot on the medicals with the hips, and I worry about a guy who already didn't have great fluidity as a corner who. He was kind of like, oh man, maybe like a safety corner hybrid he might be better at. One of those guys who doesn't necessarily have the oily hips that move real good. And then if there's residual stiffness from that hip, having that injury, that would be a little bit concerning to me when you go to the NFL level. But if that comes back clean on medicals, which I don't have any information on right now until we get closer to the draft when that stuff comes out, then I would absolutely think Benjamin Morrison would be a great pick here.
Totally. I think for me, when I look at this, it is Benjamin. I like Revel. I think the only issue with this in a Bengals scenario is I do think how they would be looking is, hey, Golden has that connection with Morrison. I think that's going to go a long way, especially if you're bringing somebody into the building.
If we're going to do that,
Yeah.
And I know you want to touch on Darian Porter. I'm assuming.
No, I was gonna say the issue with him, he's like 24. And so he's
But with Porter in general, before Malik goes, the Bengals have drafted phenomenal athletes at the cornerback position the last few years, and Darian Porter is the best athlete in the cornerback in the class. So if I mean he's older, there's definitely some flags there for sure. But just their trend of drafting super uber athletic corners, he fits that mold perfectly. And Gravel would too if he tested.
Right. Yeah. You said you were gonna say trade back.
I was gonna say trade back in this scenario because I think we need to get more picks. I think we so Evan, just so you know, last week we developed a strategy, we think, right, for the Bengals.
Trade back?
You trade back in the second round, honestly, because you get what you need a little bit more sooner.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I'm okay with drafting a Jordan Salvaina or somebody like that in the second round.
Absolutely.
Some of these guys are off the board.
Absolutely.
Because I think that guy projects much better as a dominant guard in the National Football League.
I'm totally good with the trade back.
Yeah.
Let's see who we got. We got the Broncos at 51, the Packers at 54.
If we're thinking about the Bengals brass, I just want to say this. I want everyone to think about what the mentality of what there would be. Win the draft, win the trade scenario.
Yeah.
They're not going to just sell for a similar pick swap or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
We have to look to try to add tangible assets, guys, that make sense. Tom Jones, Xavier Watts.
I think we got to remember the other team is
also
also
not available.
negotiating too.
Yes,
So
yes.
that is part of it. The Bengals want to move back as much as they want to get extra picks. So
but also the one thing I will say to that is if a team is interested in moving up, there must be a guy that they're eyeing at the spot because there are a lot of good names still on the board here that are worthy of probably a pick here.
Yeah. So how far back we looking to go here? Like,
I mean,
only a handful of picks.
I'll move any of these.
I'm comfortable. I don't want to say a decent bit, but because that's
like
a loose
7,
term.
8.
Who has multiple second round picks?
That's I don't know if you're gonna get many. Just take a look, see where we're interested. Carolina's got 57. They got
57 and 74. It's not bad
for a 8-pick move up.
Would they do that?
I don't know. The Panthers are interesting because they're a young team. If there's a guy they identified here, maybe. But you know, probably be. I mean, 111 and 114 is too kind of interesting too. You're moving 8 and you get 3 picks or 2 picks close to each other. So you put 114 in there too. This is just. I mean, we can look at all of them from like this is what we can consider for the Panthers, and then we can go to another team and kind of gauge that as well. Just throwing that out there as well.
Yeah, I personally, if we're doing this, honestly, I would want 2 top 100 picks. So I like this.
Team,
because this would give us what these are 2 4th rounders. I would want
maybe comp third. I don't know exactly where that ends.
Well, let's see. Hold on. Let's see who else has. Bills have 56 and 109.
They have 62 also. They have 62.
I'm not just going strictly 109. I'm interested.
So
I'd throw in a 5th rounder.
You're not getting both second round picks
for moving up.
I was going to say, you're not getting both second round picks. You pick one of those. I know you would, but this ain't Madden on all.
I'm finessing, okay?
This ain't rookie.
I'm finessing. I'll finesse.
Like, what else we got?
Texans.
I don't think they have. That's the Panthers again. I don't know if the Texans have a lot.
58 and
they don't have a lot of. They got
58 and
89. That's not bad. That's not a bad one. That gives you another top 100. 79 is obviously a bit rich. I mean, 58 and 89 is not bad. That's a pure third.
So this is a third. 89's third.
That's just another thought. But would you rather?
I would be willing to try this.
There's a 13 chance.
I'm gonna ask him.
Nice try, Daniel. I like that.
Are you guys good with?
I'll say, would you guys rather have 89, or like the Panthers one with the 2 picks? Guys, gives you 2 more swings as well. I think I might lead 89 just because it is a bigger gap.
Give me 89.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Wait, give me throw in 236.
I mean, we got to throw in like 153 then, because like you're not getting 3.
Well, let's see.
You're not getting a 2nd, a 4th, and a 5th round pick.
No, this is the 7th. That's 7th.
This is 7th.
Okay.
All right.
There's our trade back.
So they moved up.
Listen, we can't say that we've seen some stupid deals with the Bengals.
And we have the history. We've dealt with the Texans with Joe Mixon, so it always helps as well. Let's see who they went up for. Jaden Higgins. That's a fun player. I don't know about the fit in general. Princely, love Princely to Seattle there. The Broncos, Revel to the Broncos. That's a fun fit.
That's a good pick.
That's a fun fit. Swinson.
Braden Swinson. I really liked him as an option for
JT gone too.
I like Braden Swinson for a guy who's got a developed pass rush repertoire. So if you're looking for someone who can come
Scatabo to the Chargers, dude.
Oh yeah, that's a good fit.
All right, it seems like we're still gonna have some options here.
I'm so glad Jack Sawyer's off the board.
I don't
want to have that conversation.
I'm not wasting my breath. Okay.
So we went edge rusher.
We went
Mike Green.
Now we can kind of do a little bit whatever. We need to consider the offensive line heavy. Irsay's here. He's a fun one.
Wait.
Here's offensive line. Embo here. Savaino. Wyatt Milam, I like a lot as well. Tate Ratledge, we talk about every week. Another good, solid player. Charles Grant's climbing a little bit. Where are we thinking here? 58.
You guys thinking? I mean, for me personally, when we look
Split
at
the board again.
so we've got 58 and we've got 81
and then 89. So we're close-ish. Darian Porter's still here. We talked about corners. I know he's a little bit older. Omar Norman Lott, we talked about last week. Benjamin Morrison is here at a little bit of a better cost with the hip. Love Josiah Stewart, but we already took an edge.
How do you feel about CJ West, Logan?
In general, I like CJ West.
It might be
the fit for the Bengals is a little. He's kind of like Chris Jenkins-y-ish, but like probably a little better.
He's got a little
like,
more beef to him.
He does. He does. He's an interesting player. I mean, I don't know about the fit with the Bengals per se as much.
He's kind of like
he's a good
tweener.
Yeah.
Tweener of like a nose tackle 3-tech, like where he's got the mass, but he's more of that slippery penetrator.
Yeah.
But definitely someone who I've been looking a little bit harder at kind of the.
He's a fun player.
Back end of the second, kind of third round.
I like him, and I think one of the things that I remember going back and rewatching the two games. I mean, he played some phenomenal teams in the Big Ten. I mean, I remember both Ohio State and Notre Dame game. The Ohio State game obviously is great here, wasn't good, but he was very, very productive in that game. And I think for him, this is too rich for him, specifically for where the Bengals are as well. I think there's other options, but I like him.
I think that's someone you wait and see if maybe they followed the pick in the 80s that we have.
No, yeah, that'd be nice.
For me right now, the conversation it's Benjamin Morrison or there's go Porter, offensive line.
Porter's there still. Some of these offensive linemen are good. We like Savaino a lot over here.
It's Morrison or Savaino for me here, and I think both guys. Savaino fills a need versus Morrison is that bet on that dude should have been a first round pick.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Why you keep tailing the draft to just two people?
Well, I'm saying, there's so many different options.
Yeah, let's talk about we've drafted Arante Irsay last draft in the first round.
Yeah,
in the second round. I think that I don't want to be close minded to a myriad of different picks. We keep saying, it's between this or that for me, and it's like I think we should talk about. It's a lot of different guys.
For sure. We can talk about all of them. Yeah. I was just saying for my official pick, I think I kind of nailed it down to two guys that I was thinking right now, but I can be swayed on anybody, of course.
I still like Norman Lott here as well. Yeah. Just the
Those snaps are so tough, though. You didn't play like over 300 snaps
in a
single season.
We talked about it
Not a single season.
We talked about it a little bit last week, but like that's just what he's going to do in the NFL too. He's just going to be a strict pass rusher and he's going to be pretty dang good at it. You know what I mean? Like you'd like the snaps to go up a little bit. You'd like to see him be on the field a little bit more, but he's just gonna be a guy that rushes the passer, and with that production in the limited snaps, if you give him a little bit more opportunities, he's not gonna excel in the run game, but he's still gonna be a guy that rushes the passer and does it pretty damn well.
I know Tennessee rotated, but like if I look at this and I'm just so worried that it's like, hey, you guys just tired the fuck out of the offensive line you were facing, and then on passing downs you went in and just shoved him in there, and it's like if he was truly just this down to down dominant guy, he would have been playing more than 250 snaps. Like I'm not asking for 600, 800. I'm just why 200? That's not the only amount of passing snaps you had, man. That's what 12, 14 a game. Like that's all you can contribute to a college team in the SEC. And I'm going to be.
He also contributed 5 sacks in back-to-back years. Like it's not like he's like not doing.
Yeah, no, he's efficient. I'm saying like, man, if you're trying to sell me on this guy and you're saying, yeah, he's going to come in for 10 snaps a game for you, and at the end of the season you're going to be sitting there and he's going to play 180 snaps and have 3 or 4 sacks, like all right, but I'm not getting excited for taking that guy in the second round.
I mean, if he's going to continue to have a 20% pass rush run rate, I'll be pretty excited.
Well, yeah, but what if he's not doing it in college? What evidence do you have that he's going to do it in the NFL? More than 200 snaps. I'm saying if you're just like, I'm going to pay him at 500 snaps and he's magically going to maintain the same efficiency. I go, well, if you didn't do it in college, why am I going to project you to do it in the NFL?
I wouldn't expect, like I said, I'm not going to expect him to play that many more snaps. Yes, and generally the second round price tag that that's totally fine. That's
right. Like
that's what
we're
arguing
talking
here.
about a very limited player.
But just
here,
in
and I'm
general,
just
like the
man,
Bengals need what he does well.
I
His
wanna
role
love-
that he will be the same as it is in college, and that's what we know he does well at.
I'm an
That's all there is
analytics
to
guy.
say.
I want to love him, but I just have so much trouble getting on board with that sample size. It kills me. Makes me very nervous.
Here, I love it. By the way, we actually love the fact that we're getting into it. I missed this. Logan, you're the linebacker guru here. I want to talk to you about Demetrius.
Demetrius Knight,
Demetrius Knight, yeah.
Jermaine Pratt Jr.
The
Yeah.
age is going to be the age and
He's
production is going to be
old.
very concerning.
He's a really good player, and
Yes.
I think he's a very fun player. I think he can help it. I think he can come in and start right away, but he is old, and like it's probably he's just really old. I think he's gonna be 25
damn.
when his rookie contract or at the end of this year. Like that's pretty old play. He comes downhill really well. I think there's just some better linebackers I like, in later rounds or even just in general. He's a good player though. I don't want to act like he's not, but just I don't think the Bengals should be drafting a 25-year-old linebacker in the second round.
Sorry, I was just going to mention on that. It's really tough for guys who are older prospects like that, and especially if you're a 4th or 5th year breakout player and you weren't dominating as a younger prospect.
Yeah.
It does not bode well for you. And a good example from last year was a prospect everyone fell in love with after testing, and 1 year of flashy production was Xavier Legette, right?
Yeah.
And we saw him
Also from South Carolina.
absolutely struggle in the NFL when he got out there and was given the opportunity and even got the snaps. Yeah, he had a couple of flashy plays, but he was not down and down consistent, and he was rarely able to contribute in a wide receiver room that was bereft of talent. So that's where I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking that weighs on my mind with those kind of prospects, where I do like taking those guys, but a lot of times I like taking those productive older guys in round like 4 and 5 as opposed to like round 2 and 3, where I think we can get some younger guys with more upside.
So one thing I want to touch on too, I know we talked about being a little bit of a prospect, but a Darian Porter, for instance, that we talked about him last time we were about the draft.
Yeah.
The cornerback spot still rears its ugly head in terms of needing a guy long term back there. Yeah. But to be honest with you guys, this might be unpopular too. With us discussing so many different prospects and us, would you guys entertain another trade back potentially here?
I think we're kind of pushing the bounds of reality.
I'm not saying trade back significantly, but I'm saying if we can recoup maybe a 4th rounder or something like that, I think it could make sense personally.
Yeah, I think, and I agree. My only issue is who's going to be willing to give. I think to get a 4th rounder, I think we have to trade back.
If it were up to me, I'd trade back in the 1st round, and then I'd trade back in the 2nd, and I get an extra 2nd and 3rd and 4th round. But that's the thing is like this is ultimately this is supposed to be an exercise for us to explore these players and kind of explore that. And I worry that we start altering the fabric of reality.
Let me explain to you my madness behind it for a second. It's not just like it's Madden. It's
right.
Theoretically speaking, I don't love any of these guys sitting right here. And the guys that I do love in a Jordan Sabaina that I would be willing to draft in the 2nd round, or a Tate Ratledge, I think this might be a little too rich for them. I think it's too rich for Tate Ratledge early in the 2nd when we had our pick, and I think it's a little too early here, especially considering the names that are on the board. I still think if you trade back in this round, you can still get those guys.
I will say, I think Savaina is totally acceptable here. He's a top 50 player for me, and we're at 58. Okay. And I know you like the player a lot too, so I don't want to like make it seem like I think he's totally worth it. I know PFF doesn't necessarily.
In my head, I just remember the last times we did the draft, he got drafted in the 3rd round.
Yeah,
that's why for me, I'm like, shoot, if we could try to win the draft while recouping a 4th rounder, even if we have to sell off a 7th round pick or whatever we got back, I'm okay with that. But again, I kind of wanted to kind of sit back a little bit more on this draft and kind of like let you guys come to terms on those things.
Yeah, and I think this is
my statement draft was last week.
We're gonna trade back with the Browns, though. Really?
Probably not. Yeah. I mean, get 68 and 108 here at least
from the Raiders. That's trading down 10 spots. What's worst case scenario? Like if they take the corners, I guess it'd be the linemen. I guess is probably what we're considering here. I don't hate it. I'm still tempted with Benjamin Morrison still. He's got the connection with Golden. It's just I think
this is a good spot to take a stab at an athletic corner, whether that is
because
Benjamin
he was
Morrison
so
with that,
good.
whether that is Porter. I think this is a good spot to maybe attack the secondary.
I think if we're going for the exercise of being realistic, and I think the Morrison connection makes sense, even though I probably wouldn't do that here, but I think it does make sense. We still got Ariante Irsay here.
Yeah.
Irsay. You know, that's the reason why I was interested.
That's the thing.
No,
Is there's guys
hear
I
you.
want to love in this
Yeah.
area, right? Like I absolutely would love like the fun of a Quinshon Judkins of
Mhm.
looking at some of these guys. I love the prospect of like we talked about with CJ West. I love the idea of
Lot.
of Norman Lott. I love the idea of some of these guys, but it doesn't feel. I agree with you where it feels a little rich for all these guys. But I mean, if we just say that for the next 20 picks, really,
Yeah.
like I think this right here is where you take your stab of one of your favorite upside swings at this spot.
I think another name I kind of want to throw out, and I don't necessarily see us going down that avenue.
Mhm.
I really like Jared Ivey. And
That's another
one
one
of
I've
the
wanted to
reasons I
love.
feel a little more comfortable bringing him up is because he has played inside a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not like he's just a strict edge. He's 6'6". He's 6'6", what, 285? Yeah, 285. He's a big guy. You know, he can be your early down edge rusher. He can kick inside on passing downs a little bit. He's just a guy that plays pretty well. Yes, that Ole Miss all defensive line has so many talented players. Maybe he kind of benefited from that or what. But he's just a really solid player, and we're trying to add defensive line talent. He can kind of help on the edge, kick in inside, on passing downs a little bit. He really held that Ole Miss line together because Princely wasn't really moving in. Walter Nolan wasn't moving outside. He's staying inside. He was kind of the one guy that they moved around a little bit to kind of make those other guys comfortable. And again, I don't necessarily know if we're going to consider double dipping at edge, but I think if we were to consider another edge type player, he'd be the one that kind of gives you a little more versatility to it, to where it's not just, hey, dang, we drafted 2 strict edge players.
I do really like the idea of him not having his testing numbers is kind of concerning
they're
because
not
especially did they come out?
Oh, yeah.
So that actually matches with what you see on film, right? Because he does not have the speed to come off the edge.
No.
He does not have the bend or the flexibility to get around you. So his only options
He's
are power,
very
which
technical.
is that's why you brought up that like he could go inside on those passing downs,
Yeah.
and maybe that's where he could fit.
Yeah.
I do want to love him in that sense.
Yeah.
He's got the size that the Bengals
Yeah.
love, but like you said, he's kind of that tweener spot of like, yeah, if you were like kind of the 3-4 edge, like the Alabama Georgia defense, where you're like, I need a guy who can 2-gap and let my linebackers kind of clean up.
Yeah.
He is a perfect fit. I think there's a way to get creative to get him on the field. I don't know if I have the faith in the Bengals to do that.
No, I agree. I'm a
but
fan
I
of
do
the
like
player.
the prospect, and I
agree.
love the idea of him. He's another one.
Yeah, and I think for me with him too, my concern is I think the player is phenomenal in the sense he can do everything. My concern is I think he's going to, especially this first year, that's what you want. You hope Joseph Osai is going to do. You hope Miles Murphy is going to do is take what he would be giving you, hopefully. And I think for me, when I look at this, I like him. The concern is, hey, are we okay with passing up on the Morrison, the offensive line? Or
probably not.
I
for
think we take a
this.
swing on secondary, and hear me out, because I think Porter or Morrison, especially Porter, is a really good pick here because, like I've talked about, you lost Mike Hilton. Right now, you have 2 corners that are in your rotation that are up after this year on contract, and then DJ Ivey is up not DJ Ivey, excuse me.
Turner.
DJ Turner is up the next season. You're basically losing all 4 of your starting corners in the next year and a half, right?
Mhm.
You've already lost 1. You've got 2 more, and you're not even sure that any of the corners you have right now, though all talented in their own right, no one has shown that they could really be your dominant corner one, right? Your guy, right? And I think that Darian Porter or Benjamin Morrison.
Porter's old.
Porter,
That's the
Porter is old, and I do worry about the older prospects, but I see the reasons why.
and he's
It's
newer to the
not like he
position.
was just sitting around not
so,
playing.
yeah.
It was your wide receiver and you're on
Yeah.
special teams. Well, let's see if we can get you in. Holy shit, you're good at corner. Why were we not having you there first, right?
Yeah.
And so I see that as being the reason why that breakout was delayed, as opposed to you were on the field just being average for 3 years, and then you were 23 and you beat up on all the 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
That's when I get concerned.
Yeah, and with him, the one thing that is probably the most, glaring thing is the dude is fast, and he is a former wide receiver. And I think that's what
At 6'4", 200.
that's what brings you to, hey, when the ball is in the air, that's his game. And the
Mhm.
concern with him is a little bit of the clunkiness, is a little bit of not a fluid corner, but hey, the upside with him is phenomenal. Hey, if he can develop into that, I am a huge fan. For me personally, I think that the Morrison route is probably where I would go at corner if that's where.
That's the thing. I can't see Al Golden choosing another corner over Benjamin Morrison.
Well, are we doing this us or are we doing this Bengals?
But still,
'Cause
I can't necessarily blame him either. It's a 3-year defense. The thing with Porter, though, a 9.99 RAS score, the 5th highest score ever for cornerback position, 6'3".
has the ball skills,
ran
being
a
a former
4.3.
wide receiver. Like,
Stick him in the
that's tough,
slot
man.
on offense. I don't care. Like, that's crazy. It's just the upside, but the age is a concern.
It is. It absolutely is his red flag.
And Morrison has the connection to Golden, and he did very good things against Marvin Harrison Jr. He's done things against good receivers. I'm sure Porter has handled some more as well, being in the Big Ten as well. But still, it's just the Big 12, whatever they're in. But still, it's tough. They're very different players. We're comparing two different corners here, which I think is
targeted 17 times this past season, allowed a passer rating of 4.7.
Yeah,
you are statistically better throwing the ball into the ground than into his coverage.
People did not really throw at him much.
Just something to think about.
Like, you're still thinking about your trade back over there, aren't you?
No, I mean, I'm all for it.
I think it's time to make a decision. We've been dancing around. We've had some good discussions about a lot of prospects
I'm sitting
here.
back this draft class. I'm letting y'all.
That's how tough it is.
I like
though,
one of the
between
corners.
Picks 20 and 60, right? There's this wide area of so many guys that you want to feel good about, but there's that one thing holding you back, or those two things holding you back.
So, I mean, can we live with the age of Porter? I mean,
Porter or Morrison? What are we thinking?
Dan, you've been quiet about
these. I think the Bengals
two.
would go Morrison, but I feel like you can't ignore the athletic
I
profile,
love the upside of Porter.
and in the way he tested. I think Porter makes a lot of sense here. So I mean, I'm cool with Porter.
Yeah, I'm good with that. All right. With the 58th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, your Cincinnati Bengals select Darian Porter, cornerback, Iowa State.
There we go.
All right.
I love
Our first corner.
What I love about the testing numbers, and Daniel brought up with him, is that if you're worried about the agility, if you're worried about being clunky, he had a 6.713 cone that was 89th percentile, 83rd percentile, 20-yard shuttle. And those are two drills that people shy away from. If you are going to be average or worse, you will not do them. So it's very encouraging to see him. 131-inch broad jump is 92nd percentile. So you have the explosion, the change of direction, the size. That's all very encouraging, and I'm willing to take that risk.
If you guys could do us a huge favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. If you guys missed our first two picks, we went with the Mike Green in the first round at 17. We traded back in the second round, and we picked up Darian Porter, cornerback. So, Jets get Benjamin Morrison here in the third round. It's a good pick for the Jets.
I know, he almost made it all the way back to us.
There are some picks that are coming up here that I think I'm hoping
Mason
that
Taylor's
a lot of the
a fun
guys,
one.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I think we really need to tackle the interior of the offensive line here.
Total. I do. But I think we've done this very strategically with where the board is, because there's a lot of tackle guard hybrids. There's a lot of guards that are going to be available here in the back end of the second, early third. And guard is consistently a position that you can get in rounds 3 and 4. A lot of starters come from that range because they're a lot of the tackles that don't have the athleticism to go in the first and second round.
Daniel, I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I am here in this spot, and I would be willing to even double dip at offensive line in this spot because we have to fix the offensive line. First and foremost, Tate Ratledge is still here. He's a pure right guard. We've talked about him. We've drafted him every single draft so far. There's a reason why. You have the Marius Mims fit. You have the big school fit. He makes a lot of sense. We pick in a couple of picks. I don't think we should really spend a lot of time here on this pick.
Yeah,
because we do have pick 81 and 89. For me, it's Tate Ratledge going away. I'm praying that Jonas Savaiin is going to still be here at 89. It's a chance I'm willing to take, but I feel like the fit with the Marius Mims right next to him, you can't ignore that.
Yeah, I think that the discussion is are we sold? Is Ratledge is your pick over
Ratledge is
Savaiin?
your pure guard. You know what you're getting.
Okay.
Ratledge has an anchor, has a better anchor than a Jonas Savaiin as well. He also has the fit with Marius Mims, and the Bengals do love having their fits. It's becoming a growing trend when it comes to former college teammates. Like don't get me wrong, I love Jonas Savaiin like Logan does. But if you're asking who the better guard player is, I think it is Tate Ratledge right now. That's not to say Jonah cannot be, but he also Jonas Savaiin, he has the tackle upside, the swing. He can play he can play outside, he can play inside. But Tate Ratledge was a true right guard. That's what he did. That's what he played. There's no questions about oh, could he make it happen? I
Yeah.
like Savaiina. I think Savaiina might be here in a couple of picks.
Ratledge is the safe pick.
Ratledge is the safe pick. And I'll be honest with you, if we're drafting for the Bengals Bengals have sucked at drafting offensive linemen, interior offensive linemen recently. This is not a pick where you'll suck. Unfortunately, it might not be a sexy pick. It's a safe pick, the pick that makes sense for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I'm okay with going Ratledge here, then dabbling back up and getting Savaiina and getting a potential tackle of the future there with him.
I want to say on Wyatt Millam too that you love the analytical profile. You love the production. He's been exceptional, and I believe he hasn't allowed a sack in 3 years, right? The issue that I run into with him is that he doesn't have the athleticism to hang a tackle, right? At least I don't believe he'll be a guard, right? My issue with him at guard is if you lack the flexibility already to get low and sink into your stance, and you're already struggling with keeping your pad level down consistently, I worry about what that's going to look like when you kick inside and then you're going against defensive players who automatically kind of have that leverage advantage against you. That is my concern with him. I really love his profile. I think he's a really intriguing prospect.
Pretty well.
He tested
pretty well, which is encouraging.
I always get concerned when people have problems with pad level on the interior, especially where you're giving up generally a lot of size to these defensive tackles that already have natural leverage on you. You've got to have that flexibility to get low into your stance and really get underneath and compensate for that. And if you're already having problems with that in college, I worry about what that looks like in the next level in the NFL, where guys have much more developed pass rush moves, are a lot harder to get their hands on.
Yeah. And I agree with the.
So I love the Ratledge pick. I'm on board with that right here. I think this is really, really cool. And I also will be looking for someone interesting to fall to 89, so I can put my hand on the table for somebody that I think is. It's going to be interesting.
All right. Yeah, I'm going with Tate. All right.
Tate
With the
Ratledge.
81st overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft, your Cincinnati Bengals select Tate Ratledge, guard, Georgia.
I know some people have put Z's in the comment. We'll try to move a little quicker when we make our picks.
Elijah Roberts, fun.
Joshua Farmer goes to the Steelers. He'll wind up being a Hall of Famer for them.
Jordan Phillips, another interior defensive lineman. Trey Harris, love that fit in Denver. Big Trey Harris guy. All right, here we go. We're at to be up again. Jalen Royal, some receivers going off the board.
All right,
Kevin
listen, I'm going to say this right now. There's two guys here that I love that are still available. I am a fan of double dipping at the offensive line position. Jonas Savaiina is a guy that I feel like if you get you crush this draft. You crush this draft. Again, if the Bengals aren't going to make a priority of fixing the offensive line in free agency, make it a priority to fix the offensive line in the draft. And I feel like drafting Jonas Savaiina makes a lot of sense here. But if you are going to consider any other player here, it will be Andrew Makuba, in my opinion. That's just my thoughts.
I want to make the case for a guy.
Sure.
Charles Grant out of William and Mary. Logan, have you gotten around to him at all? Are you a fan?
I'm a fan. It's always hard. I don't struggle with the small school, but like I never know.
It's tough to get out of your own head with that. And
because they look phenomenal. But like, who are they playing?
And I'll tell you why I'm excited about him, because Charles Grant was at a small school because he didn't start playing football until his junior year of high school. He is an all-state wrestler. That is an extreme advantage along the offensive line, having that understanding of leverage and power and how to use your stance to compensate for speed to power, for bull rushes, for everything that might come your way that way. You are much more prepared and practiced with hand fighting and hand placement and using your leverage in that way. I think that is really, really valuable. And the Bengals just hired an offensive line coach who started off in that scene before transitioning to the NFL. So I think he, of anyone, would value that background and that ability and having that lump of clay, so to speak, to mold. I think he could end up being very valuable for you. Shows the athleticism that you want on tape to be able to kind of hang at tackle. Yeah, he's a little bit lighter at 311, but I still think he probably got a little bit of room that you can pack some weight on there. He does have 6'5", 34.5-inch arms, so he's 84th percentile in his length. So I think he can hang a tackle and has the athleticism to do that. So you got a small school guy that if he got into football earlier or was at a different school, I think he's going top of the second round with his traits and with what he can do. So I do want to put that out there as a guy who's been very successful, got to the game late, has been really encouraging, has great athleticism, wrestling background, good length, good size, everything the Bengals would love in that regard. I do think he's really interesting as a tackle.
I'm
prospect.
cheating. I'm looking at Evans.
I got
Evans' little
some.
board
I
that
got
he's
some
his
little
players.
physicals
Just
here.
so no, I know all the guys he's got coming up. I'm gonna jump up and say, you know what? This is a guy that I actually love a lot more. Evan, who do you like?
Yeah.
So I can sound like the smartest guy in there. Honestly, man, I hear where you're coming from.
Mhm.
Jonas Ivainez really does it for me. I understand where you like,
No.
and I do believe for the exact statements that you made regarding a guy like Charles Grant. I think Charles Grant could be here even when we pick.
Yeah,
next
absolutely
time
could be.
right? But I do think that offensive line needs to be seriously considered here because of the lack of attention it has gotten recently. I think Jonas Ivainez is a guy that probably competes at the left guard spot, and I think he does. I think he beats out Cody Ford. I think he beats out Cordell Volson. I think he instantly comes in and he's probably your starting left guard. And in the pinch, if you ever need him to move out tackle, he certainly can do that. Although I think his life long term will be at guard.
Can we take a peek at what the defensive interior looks like right now on the board and kind of plan out how that looks coming up?
Yeah,
So it looks like a lot of that value is going to be at our next pick. So I'm cool with waiting and seeing what we end up with there.
Mm-hmm.
There's maybe 3 guys that I'm interested in. Hopefully they all make it there, but
All right. Yeah, I think
What do you guys think? I want to move.
I
fast.
like
Mm.
I like
guys
the
think.
tackle guard.
I'm a huge Jonah guy.
combination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another guy I'd like, but I like the offensive line. The
Cooper's
Bengals
testing
need
was
it.
not that great.
No, but
And
a
you're
lot of
already
it.
smaller. I worry about
He
the profile.
ran well, which
Yeah.
is about if that would have been an issue. He's a smaller guy, but he knows it. That's the only.
But that's the thing is you're a smaller guy, you have to be that elite athlete.
Yeah.
So do we love Jonas Ivainez?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
I
good with
like
that
Jonah
pick.
a
Let's
lot.
do
all
it.
right. Bengals pick Jonas Savina with the 89th overall pick.
Feel very, very good about
That's a
that
fun
pick.
one. I like
makes
the
me-
double line, man.
Yeah,
I really
man.
do.
I think that you walk away from this draft feeling very, very good, getting Jonas Ivainez, and you get the other interior guard, Tate Ratledge, with the previous pick. I think you walk away feeling very, very good. You address the line. I don't feel Wyatt Millen goes to the Browns, so that's a
It's a very Browns pick. I
Brown
feel
bet.
like
yeah.
not in a bad
But,
way.
and again,
but-
it's not a sexy pick, but it's a pick that the Bengals necessarily they probably need to make. Honestly, they need to probably double. Charles Grant goes to the Dolphins.
That's
that
really
feels
good
like a
pick for
Dolphins
them.
pick.
That is a
Bell
very
to the
good
Giants
Dolphins
is a
pick.
very good
actually.
pick there as well.
It's a very good fit.
Andrew Makuba goes to the 49ers.
That's another good
all right.
pick as well. Some good picks here.
Okay.
Tez Johnson's a very
Yeah.
not Detroit Lions pick, but
They've double dipped that receiver. I think I saw them draft another receiver. earlier
maybe
than that.
they might have. Damian Martinez, another feels like
goes
a
to the
Brown.
Browns. Yeah, Damian Martinez goes to the Browns.
Nick Chubb replacement.
So, Isaiah Bond to pick. So just so we can, Dan, if you can go to our picks.
Yeah.
Just to address on, we're gonna go back really quickly. Deion Walker to the Raiders. Damn.
That's
Mike
a good
Green,
start,
very
man.
important. Tate
I
Ratledge,
really
Jonas
like that.
That's a
Ivainez.
good start, man.
That's a good start.
That's
so
a
far.
good start,
It's a
man.
good start. Good start.
I think
we
you
go back
address
in.
immediate needs on defense, and then you also get the best of both worlds with getting quality prospects at offensive line. And I think that's kind of the argument for going defense early.
Ashton went. Yeah, go up and see who he missed. Harold Fannin.
And
Aeneas Peebles,
Peebles,
motherfucker. One of these days, I'll
Kobe
get it
Bryant.
eventually.
Gunnar Helm. That feels like a very Colt.
Mhm.
Okay.
Quinn Darius Robinson.
Let me introduce you guys in Will Howard. I'm kidding. For me, it's JJ here. I love JJ. If we didn't draft a corner earlier, I would say no Williams here. Barrett Carter is another guy that makes a lot of sense. We've yet to get him in a draft. We've yet to get him in a draft. And again, for me, I'm still of the mindset. Can we draft guys that are going to come in and be able to contribute? I feel like anybody we draft on the defensive line, I have a hard time seeing where they'll be able to push for starter, because you have to ask yourself, what are they going to provide, right? What are they going to provide that's different from what we have on the team currently? I do think JJ offers a high upside from a pass rush standpoint. He's a guy that I'm really, really excited about personally. So I could be sold on drafting him here, but I also feel like we've talked about drafting a Barrett Carter the last few weeks, and we always say, oh, next round, and he literally goes every single time.
I'd like to talk about Barrett Carter because he is somebody I have been dying to talk about. Like you've said, I haven't been able to do it yet. First off, just a phenomenal athlete. He's a bit smaller, but he is just a fun, versatile player. 1,500 career snaps in the box, 300 career snaps on the defensive line, 500 career snaps in the slot. A guy that just does so many things well. We were watching a little bit of him before. He can spy the quarterback phenomenally well. He's just a great, great athlete that the Bengals don't necessarily have in a linebacker position. He's again, the chess piece, again, with the 1,500 snaps in the box, 300 on the line, 500 in the slot. He can do a little bit of everything. He was asked to do a whole lot at Clemson, which is why his coverage grade is so low, because they would literally put him on slot receivers and just let him try to hang with them. And yes, the coverage grade could still be better, but they asked him to do a lot. They tasked him with a ton of responsibilities, and he played very well. He's just a very fun player that does so many different things. He can spy the quarterback, which is great in a division with Lamar Jackson or a conference with Josh Allen and some of these more mobile quarterbacks. You know, he had 3.5 sacks this year, 3.5 sacks the year before, 5.5 sacks his true freshman season. Just a guy that just makes plays all over the field. Al Golden can really do a lot with his versatility. And again, the Bengals just kind of need a linebacker. That's my Bear Carter spiel. I love Bear Carter.
Yeah.
I totally
love Bear
hear you.
Carter.
I totally agree with you. I think this is kind of like the tail end of a tier for defensive tackle and defensive interior.
Yeah.
Whereas I do have quite a handful of linebackers that have been very athletic and productive toward a little bit later in the draft that I do feel like we can get that can help us still get a good linebacker, but also take advantage of some of the value that's maybe left on the board at either defensive tackle or even running back or another one of these
I know who
positions.
he's
that
about
here.
to say. Jamari Caldwell. Am I wrong?
No,
Okay.
I've made my arguments for Jamari Caldwell, and he's definitely the fun player of like a nose tackle with wiggle who gets a little bit of the pass rush upside, but he also is a really stout player with short arms who doesn't always disengage well from blocks. And I do think there's plenty of question marks for him. I do like him, but I also think he kind of already fits what the Bengals kind of have on the roster, where you already have the run defense, you already have the thicker guys. I really think you need more of that 290-pound, 200 or 300-pound kind of three-tech slippery pass rusher. And I don't think that Jamari Caldwell necessarily fits that where you're at right now.
What do you think about JJ?
I do like the idea of JJ. I think you're just kind of like going to be like, hey, this is going to be a rotational pass rusher, a goal line package guy, and maybe he sneaks in and
Goal line
like
package on offense.
right, like on offense and defense, where maybe sometimes he reports in as eligible, right? Where you hear 89 reports in as eligible right before the play, right? No, he is exciting. He was productive. I worry a little bit about, especially looking here at 2023, where you have 286 pass rush snaps, you had 3 sacks, but you had only 5 hurries. There was just a significant dip in production there. So would want to maybe talk to him in interviews and kind of understand a little bit about what went on there and why he believes that there was that dip in his production, because you see in 2022 that he was more productive and was more consistent. So that would just be my like kind of outstanding question, as well as his age. I believe he's close to 24 years old when he's going to be drafted. But yeah, I think this point in the draft, I do think he is a guy who gives you a versatile piece that you can move around on the board, because he did play a little bit at edge. He did play a little bit kind of head up over the tackle, not necessarily wide 9, but he can move around for you a little bit. And I do think that that's a valuable piece. I do think that this is also kind of a sweet spot for running back, and also just for the guys who fall out of the 3rd round, whether that's an offensive lineman even. I know we've already kind of went that way, but if you see somebody staring you at the face right now, this is kind of that point where you just take swings on guys who should not have fallen this far.
Yeah, I think when I look at this, I'm definitely a big fan of Logan. Kind of sold me on Barrett Carter here, to be honest with you. And when we look at the rest of these guys that are available, so we've got picking 36 picks. I think right now for me, I like the Barrett Carter, and I think the defensive tackle, I like JJ though. And my thing is, and I do agree, it really is dependent on what we think we're going to be able to get later on. Because when we look at defense tackles, for me, it's like, hey, I like JJ. If we're not going JJ, you might just punt on defensive tackle for the rest of the draft
for a while.
And is that something that
I'm starting to think, I don't know how unrealistic that is. As much as we all want it, they signed Slate multi-year deal, BJ Hill multi-year deal. Yeah. They drafted Jenkins and Jackson in the second and third round.
Which they don't draft the defensive tackle.
Like
I would not be surprised.
As much as I don't want that to happen, or if they do, it'll be a strict pass rusher or something. I think that's
it will
possible.
feel like them not drafting guard last year to me, though, and it will be very upsetting.
I agree.
Here's the issue here that we're in. Again, we could talk about this all day, right? But the fact of the matter is, if it comes down to the board looking like this, I have a hard time seeing the Bengals won't piss everyone off and just say, "Hey, let's draft Jack Kaiser." I'm being honest with you. And that might piss people off, but this is a guy that had earned the trust of a guy like Al Golden. He's a guy that, again, he's not necessarily going to wow you, but he just does everything correct, a little stiff a little bit. If you ask me. But he's a guy that they're gonna he's a linebacker. They're gonna be like, hey, can we put him together with Logan Wilson and put together a damn good solid linebacker tandem? The answer is yes. That's what they're looking for. Again, we're trying to drive athletes and guys that'll be true difference makers. Bengals is one of the guys that are going to be able to do their job, and I think Jack Kaiser, realistically, him sitting here, it's going to be very difficult for me to say the Bengals are going to pass on him.
Jack Kaiser will also be 25 in his rookie year.
Yep.
That matters to me.
Let me say this, and I think that this is something where this is how I kind of view it, and this is where for me, like, hey, for us to go and get Benjamin Morrison, or not get Benjamin, and take a kind of a chance on Darian Porter, who is a little bit older here. At this point, hey, maybe I do want, a guy that I'm just confident that comes in and just does his job, and something for the Bengals.
Yeah, because the life of a linebacker, too, sorry to cut you off there, is not that long anyway.
Yeah.
I'm being honest with you, especially in today's National Football League. So, like, could they get 4 years of production out of Jack Kaiser? And then, that's not to say he's going to be a 10-year, 12-year starter for the Bengals. Like most guys will be lucky if they make it 10 years in the National Football League.
Yeah.
I think Jack Kaiser makes a lot of sense for. This is not me necessarily pounding the table for him. I just think
it's the same argument for Morrison.
Yeah,
and this is something where the Bengals, like, if we're looking at what they will do, they take young guys early, and after round 3, they start going older. I mean, we saw Charlie Jones, Eric All. Round 4 and on, they tend to look at the older guys who are productive, guys who had 4 or 5 years at college. So,
can we do one thing though, Daniel?
Yeah.
I know we've talked a lot about linebacker, corner, and we look at some of the offensive players, see what's available, like running back, the running back room. Okay.
I was looking at that, and it's just not good compliments, or there's a lot of
there's some good players here. I like
interesting players, but
I like
not.
I like those first 3 players. That, like, how much, like, in general, in your guys' idea and just offensive mindset, how much does it matter? Like, do you want your running back to be a compliment, or do you I think there's plenty of value for them being similar players as well, because you don't have to change anything. So it's like, I know some people are compliment guys, some people, because like Blue, Tootin, and Smith are all good players.
Yes,
but they all are Chase Brown-esque ish players.
I will also, and maybe this more reflects on the scheme and the design than the players themselves. But I would love to have a running back who was very talented at finding that little bit of space in the short yardage situations. I believe there was just a tweet from Warren Sharp a couple days ago that had Cincinnati dead last over the last 3 seasons in 4th and 1 conversion. You've got to find ways to win those conversions, because those are the plays that keep you in competition in the playoffs, that flip field position, that gain you leverage in those games where you just need a breath, where you need something to go your way. You need those conversions.
And that's why I draft JJ Guys. That's what Evan was saying.
Right. Yeah. So you can give him that and he'll get and yeah, dude, I look at that, and that's what I desire from the compliment, because I do hear you out that in an ideal world, yeah, you have a running back who's decent enough between the tackles, has the home run hitting speed when he does get broken free, has the pass blocking, and can hold. But that's so much to ask for from one running back anymore these days. And to get 2 of them who can do that is very difficult to do anymore. So I definitely see the value in running back, but I don't see it here.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. What else we got available?
Yeah, I was going to say, check out tight end. I think it's worth a shot. Again, just a little bit out of the range, nothing super exciting. Some fine players, but again, I think everything's.
Can we see center?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got fullback Willie Lampkin.
Yeah, man. I'm really just looking at JJ here, and I'm looking at the linebackers.
JJ's the best pick, in my opinion, and JJ or no, honestly, no Williams could be a pick of the future, man. If you listen, you talk about double dipping. No Williams is the guy that, you know him a lot better than us. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
He's 6'2", right?
He's 6'1".
6'1", more or less. Do you see any world, because his ball skill ability is nuts? Do you see a world in which he could play safety in the next level?
I think he can. The issue with him is he's not I think he could. The issue with him, and the problem I think I would have, and this is just honestly speaking, is he went 5 straight years of playing corner. I think it's a difficult thing to ask, especially with the Bengals, of saying, hey, let's try him out at safety versus where's he going to get the real reps? I think he could, but I think he's a guy he would need the reps. Yeah. And I just struggle to be like, hey, where's he going to find those reps? I totally think he could, but for me, if we're going to take him, it's like, hey, we're on the same page. He could be a star outside corner.
Yeah, I think so too, man. I think that your corners of the future. You got Cam Taylor-Britt on a 1-year deal. Who else on a 1-year deal?
Well, DJ has another. He has 2 years.
I think Cam's the only one.
Cam-
Dax's 5th year would
Yeah,
be
but it's
need to
coming off
be
the
picked
ACL.
up,
Yeah,
and then
And
DJ's in 2 years.
yeah.
So
I'm good on JJ. I'm good with JJ here personally. That's just
I
me.
just want to point out here because we haven't talked about this prospect yet, and I saw someone was bringing him up in the running back conversation. Bayshaw Tootin is a lot of fun, has a fun name, does not play in a fun way on a down-to-down consistency. 9 fumbles in just over 300 attempts over the last 2 years is bad. That is as bad as it can get. I'm pretty sure it's first percentile bad, not first in the good way either. Like
High schoolers don't even fumble that much.
right? Like 9, and that's literally like what, 1 in almost every 10, like what, 1 in every 20 carries, 1 in every 30 carries,
Which
so
could be almost one in
almost
every game.
other game he fumbles. Like that is just, you can't do that. You can't. And I know Chase Brown had some fumbling issues that they've worked with, and he hasn't been nearly as bad as he was in college with his ball security, and that's something you can work on. But I don't see enough from Tootin where I'm like, hey, I want to take a chance on him, especially over some of these guys.
yeah. So are we all good with we good with JJ?
I
like
guess.
You don't seem happy.
I am. I
you
love
want-
JJ.
you want
I
Barrett?
love
He just-
JJ.
he
I want
loves
Barrett
Barrett Carter.
But there, as Evan said, I do like some of these other linebackers. I do think Barrett Carter is better than all of them.
Yeah.
But I love JJ. I've been very adamant about that. It's just I hate that we're debating. Debating them.
Let's draft JJ, but let's keep it going. One thing I want to ask though is JJ active on game days? Who's not active?
I think so. When you're talking about 300 plus pound guys,
Mhm.
I think especially in the trenches, rotations are important,
Yeah.
especially on the D line, and also those guys get injured a lot. It's
Howard
hard
Steelers.
Give
it
me
is
the
hard to
future, baby.
operate.
No to the Packers.
They did this to me
Yeah,
another
I think-
again.
Okay.
Oh,
The
yeah, with
Carrington
Carrington
Valentine. Now there's something about that damn division, man. They did the same thing. Dwight McGlover and Vikings.
Well, so
My point
I
was going to be, it's very easy. One defensive tackle goes down, and now who's your rotation?
Exactly.
Because
I
that's,
think he can
Willie
be.
Lamp
like,
into
I
the
think he can
Ravens.
be. Yeah.
Patrick McCarry or
I just-
Pat
what?
Richard?
Pat
Richard?
Rico. Oh my
Pat
god,
Richard?
bro.
That's the Pat Richard replacement, right? Richard
Dude, that's
replacement.
genius. Then write an article about that.
Jack Kaiser.
the
Jack
Bills.
Kaiser goes to the Bills.
That feels like a very Bills pick.
I'm a fan of the JJ pick, and I think Evan,
Me
you
too.
brought up the point. Like, you have McKinley Jackson, Chris Jenkins, BJ, and TJ. If one of those guys goes down, he's active,
Mhm.
and if 2 of those guys goes down,
Damian
he's playing a
Martinez.
lot of
He already
snaps.
got picked.
And JJ is somebody that can immediately
I
come
think-
in, at least give you the pass rushing upside.
I think he can
and-
be active on game. Like you might have to get a little creative with the edge depth, but
Couldn't you see that guy being someone who just comes in and like now all of a sudden, TJ may get less playing time now?
yeah,
all of a
or
sudden.
even just like I know this is gonna sound dumb, but like just the creativity he can provide on offense for that
It
5-6
matters.
snaps a game is important.
it is something else. The defense has to dedicate time
Yeah.
out of their limited practice time in their
Which is
week to
so
be ready
important.
Can we
for
can
that.
we also talk about how in the 5th round is so important because we have several teams that forfeited 5th round picks,
Yeah,
It
and
helps.
that's gonna help the Bengals out in a lot of ways. Okay, so we're here in the 5th round. I'm about to be honest with you guys. We've never done this before. I would entertain Quinn Ewers here personally. If he was here, I would for the back quarterback spot. It's not necessarily a need. It's not necessarily needed at the spot. You like your backup quarterback.
I think I'd probably take Tyler Show.
I think it'll be
over-
gone in real life.
I think I would take. Would you take Tyler Show over Quinn Ewers?
I would
I haven't
take-
looked hard at quarterbacks, but
I would
like
take
McCord.
Kyle
Martinez
McCord.
got picked
if we
before.
were to do it.
Martinez did.
Yep.
Everybody, we got to pay attention to the draft. Martinez already got picked. He's no longer on the board.
Yep.
Trust me, if these guys are on the board, we'd be considering them. Trying to think.
What
who
else we like here? Pull up just the
Wait, go. Yeah, exit.
just pull up the overall board for a second. Kyle Williams is fun.
I
Kobe.
love-
I mean,
Kyle
Kobe
Williams
King.
is a really interesting pick right here.
Yeah.
And probably another guy that'll
There's a
probably
lot
be
of
gone.
these guys.
There's-
Donald Fortune's fun.
There's obviously some of these
Cody
linebackers.
Simon is if we're going to consider a linebacker.
No, I kind of just to
Playmaker.
throw 2 other names out there that we haven't necessarily talked about that I kind of want to.
Mhm.
First up, Upton Stout. He's pretty much a slot corner, safety hybrid guy. Just, I mean, a phenomenal run defender for a potential slot corner. Very small, very undersized, but a guy that has moved around a good bit. And just again, a 90 run defense when you're 5'9" is to be point blank simple, fucking awesome.
Mhm.
Like he's 5'9", absolutely rocking people. But the guy that I really kind of want to talk about here is RJ Mickens from Clemson. Just honestly, really good. Like I don't understand how there's not too much love from here. Again, he's projected way down the board, so it's a guy we can wait on. But a 90 coverage grade at 25% force and completion rate. A guy that ran in the 4.4s. A 4.49, an 8.6 RAS score. Just another guy that could kind of be a roaming ball hawking guy in the back end of the secondary. It's weird. I mean, not that he took anybody's job, but Makuba transferred. RJ Mickens, next guy up. Look at them both. They're both pretty similar players. Just another good.
How tall is he?
He is 6 foot. He's 6 foot 199. So he's a guy that again can play safeties. I think he can come in and play. He maybe won't be able to knock out Geno Stone, but just again, there's a lot of things I like about him. And we talk about the safety in the secondary a lot. But these are two guys that could be considered later as well if we go the linebacker route. But just again, I'm a big fan of RJ Mickens in general.
I think if we are going to address the linebacker spot, and I think you may have some valid points as well. I do think Cody Simon has to be.
I love Cody Simon.
Yeah,
got the production. Like you said, he's just he does everything correct. He
does
everything correct. He can rush the passer. He can make plays in the passing.
also
game
played
as
in the
well.
slot.
Yeah,
I believe at times, and I think
his run defense great. You gotta love that. He's an athlete, man. He's a guy that I'm really really excited about. And I feel like obviously got the Ohio State being in state.
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
So we're gonna end up with Ohio State players somehow, some way.
Yeah.
and he's also somebody that isn't just your typical linebacker. It depends on what you want. He's not going to be your typical 6 foot run stuffing guy. He is athletic, and he's somebody where you can see him coming on blitzes, and I think that's what you kind of hope for, especially what we're round 4, round 5, like round 5. I think that out of these linebacker groups, I'm definitely a fan of Simon the best.
Can you repeat this? We talked with our guy Nolan Thomas last week as well. He's on the table again for Danny Stutzman. Can you explain the reasoning as to why?
He is horrible in coverage. And that is 60% of what the NFL is on a regular basis now. You are an excellent run defender, but with all the athleticism in the world, you are just lost. And it's not like, oh, you just lost on some plays. It is you are lost on the field. You are spun around like a top. You are in the wrong spot on the field. And that's just tough because if there's one thing NFL coaches love, I remember they were talking about Sean Lee. Sean Lee is not an exceptional linebacker in any mean, physically, speed-wise, anything. But a reporter was watching film in the defensive room with the Cowboys coaches, and there was a mistake on the play. And he went, oh, it must have been this linebacker. And he was like, wait, how do you know that without even watching the playback? And he goes, because Sean Lee doesn't make a mistake. And NFL coaches love that down-to-down consistency, love the guy who can be in his spot where he needs to be and not be a liability to give up explosive plays on the field. Even if you keep things in front of you and rally and tackle, that's something to be valued. If you are just a complete, just open gate for people to attack, if they can just be throwing just levels concepts at you and just picking you apart and just coming in behind you for a 20-yard in or dig route, or you can just be getting just the window dressing on the backside gets you, and then people are running free in front of you because you don't have good feel for coverage. That's what's really concerning about Stutzman.
Yeah, and just I'm going to harp on the last point Evan just made there, like being an offensive guy and, trying to figure out how I want to game plan to make these plays. The last thing I want to do as a defensive coordinator is have an obvious answer. If Danny Stutzman's on the field, he is your first read, your second read, your third read. Is he blitzing? Okay, I'm throwing behind him. Is he in coverage? Shit, I'm throwing out him anyway.
You can just RPO him to death.
Exactly.
Because you can just
don't
make him
want
so
to put
wrong.
somebody on the field that gives an offense an easy answer. I just think that's
over
what
the
Danny
middle of the
Stutzman is.
field. Quick passes. Like it's
There's
just,
some teams where he could thrive a little bit more with a lot of coverage guys out there that can do things. He's, maybe he could play him in that Zach Bond role a little bit down the middle, but like that's very
imagine
like
if you had Tyler Boyd and all of his choice routes.
Exactly.
Just going up against Stutzman. If you have a quarterback with a good combination, or a good rapport with his slot receiver, my God, dude, you could destroy him. You could just pick on him all game until he's off the field.
Sorry, Danny.
Yeah, excellent run defender. I wish there was more. As someone who's looking for elite linebackers, I want to believe, but that is, a lot of handful of smart people that know a lot more about football than me are very out on him.
Yeah,
Cody Simon is.
I'm good with that.
I like Kobe King a lot too, but I like Cody Simon in general.
All right, 153rd pick in the NFL draft. Cincinnati Bengals select Cody Simon, linebacker, Ohio State.
And linebacker really is just coverage is becoming more important because you're not just asking guys to just come down and keep what's in front of them and just drop into spots, and you're asking them to read everything out, but then you're asking them to chase to the opposite hash. You're asking them to chase that running back on the swing route and get out to that sideline and get in front of him. You're asking them to carry guys, tight ends, athletic as hell, basically wide receivers up the seam on Tampa 2. Like you require so much from your linebackers. You can't be lost in coverage.
Yeah.
You can't be giving up 20-yard plays.
You can't.
No. Especially in the middle of the field. You have to make life hard.
I like that.
So that is a Donald Fortune's a good pick there too for the Eagles. Seth McCloud. That's a pretty. I mean, for the needing some offensive line.
All right,
Obi
this game.
King to the tight end.
That's a good fit as well.
Oh, I will just say this. Obviously, some of the offensive guys I love, offensive line guys I love. I know we've kind of hammered that pick, but obviously got the Holland Pierce still available. That's a pick that's always going to catch my attention. But Jonah Monheim, you still don't necessarily have a clear-cut answer. Upton Stout goes to the Seahawks. Guy I would have considered with the next pick. Mongai to the Cowboys. But you think about a guy like Jonah Monheim, who potentially could be here at our next pick. You pretty much just figured out the interior of the offensive line at every position for the future. You drafted starters, and you have your solid backup options. You officially, I know everyone's excited for Matt Lee still, and I'm excited about Matt Lee, but
we can be excited about seventh round picks while also being realistic about the hit rate of seventh round picks.
Robert Longer Beam to the Ravens is a very good pick. He's a solid.
If he was the longest beam, I think he'd be higher on my board. But probably. I just, there's longer beams out there.
Someone said, "Can I make a shout out to the Sean Dolac? Then led the nation in tackles at like 5 to 6.
The Buffalo linebacker.
Yeah,
Jonah Monheim just went.
Oh damn, that hurts my heart. That's such a Rams pick.
That's
right
a good pick. That's a good pick.
FRN says he can stop the run. Y'all talk about players like they are finished products. Talking about Danny Stutzman.
He can't stop the run. That's what he can do.
Yeah, guys, like that's the one down linebacker now. When you're passing on second and third down and even first down so many times, the obvious rundowns that you have are so much fewer and farther in between. And I agree, like, hey, yeah, we're nitpicking between these guys in the 5th round, but I'd rather take a guy who was 20% less the run defender and was above average, but above average in coverage, and not even just average, not even below average, piss poor, lost on the field in coverage. So like,
yeah, it's not like he was average,
right?
It's 42,
right? And that's why I'm like, dude, like if you don't have the instincts already, and you were playing at Oklahoma, like you have so much space on the field, you're not dealing with like it's just I don't love it. I'd rather take the guy with the more coverage upside, who's going to be able to be out there for 3 downs or even 2 downs, but run defense is just becoming the secondary concern for a lot of NFL teams.
Josh Brooks is interesting.
For being where we are in the draft, there's a lot of people I feel like I would really consider here, to be honest with you. Like
we always get to this point in the draft and we really start like diving deep.
Josh Brooks been really productive.
He's fun.
I like LaQuint Allen. I like Gordon to a degree. I like Jalen Conyers a lot at tight end, but again, it's tight. I like the other tight end from Syracuse, if he's here too, Ron Gatson. I like Smell Mund double dipping in the linebacker range again. I like Clay Webb if he's here. Like there's so many, like just again, we're very late. Nothing
taking shots
is, like guaranteed, but
I think a running back
could be a fun
stick
offensive
on the roster though. I think a running back could really make this pick.
I love Ollie Gordon here personally.
The thing with Ollie too, like that's why I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, like I know he didn't have the best year this year.
Their offense was
terrible. And this year last year was so good. It's almost hard to ignore. Like when you have a year like that and now you're off. The rest of your offense sucks. Like Boise State, they got lucky their quarterback was functional enough and smart enough to be able to pick apart, and their offensive coordinator was enough to make life work with like when Ashton G&T was getting, stuffed a few times and they had answers. Oklahoma State did not. It was give the ball to Ollie Gordon and hope he makes a run, and he struggled to do that this year because it's a very difficult thing to do. Just it's one of those things like the upside here with Ollie Gordon when you've already seen the upside is it's hard to argue with. It's just hard to argue with.
Yeah, Ollie Gordon, I think that he's much closer to the player we saw last year than the player he was this
and
year.
Even if he's the player he was this year, that's still an acceptable compliment to Chase Brown. And that's you. I don't say that's when you getting him at his worst, but that's you getting him as a guy that ran for half the amount of yards and almost half the amount of touchdowns he ran last year. He's still a player that would be active on game days, playing on game days, and probably handling short yard situations.
Yeah. I mean, because when you look at the rest of the board, I just don't really. I like Taj Brooks a lot. I think if there's any other player,
I feel it's like Ali Gordon's the last like running back for me that when I look at him, like he's different. He offers something different, right?
Yeah.
He has the
Mhm.
because I also want to bring
Yeah.
up people don't like this, but I'm going to say this: the Bengals brought back Samaje P. Ryan not to just ride the pine. They brought him back because he was a good pass protector. They brought him back because he was a good veteran presence, and he is going to play whether people like it or not. He's going to play for the Bengals. What does that role look like? That's up to be discussed. But I really believe Ali Gordon. I think he could really like push for some really solid reps at the running back spot and really give you something different. He's the bigger style back. You can get those short yardage for you. And so Samaje P. Ryan is only on a 2-year deal. I think Ali Gordon is a no-brainer pick here.
I agree. I like it.
all right. With the 193rd pick in the NFL draft, Cincinnati Bengals select Ollie Gordon, running back, Oklahoma State.
Now we got like 40 picks to our next pick. Might take a while there.
Yeah. And this is just a shot in the dark type pick. This next one, Holland Pierce won't be here. I can assure you that. At that pick, if he is, well, I don't know if conversations need to be had necessarily, but I could say, I'd be pretty happy if we were.
Yeah, Jalen Connors. That's such a Chargers pick there as well.
They need a tight end.
But didn't they just sign somebody?
They
Not
signed.
great.
This draft is different. I didn't.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's different.
I'm a big
It's
fan
It's
of it.
not necessarily what I expected going in, which I should have known because whenever you add Evan to the equation, he's going to throw different thoughts out there and different ideas. I kind of like the way this draft kind of has shaped up.
We've definitely gone and addressed the needs on defense really hard early, and I think that freed us up a lot later in the draft to take a lot of the value that fell at tackle,
Even
at
offense.
guard.
Even
Right.
offense.
And there were even times where we were looking at wide receiver like, hey, maybe this is time you take an upside shot at the guy in 5th or 6th round because you don't necessarily I want to believe in the development of Yoshivas, but he did not really deliver, I think, on expectations last season. I think Mike Gesicki was a lot more of the wide receiver 3.
Yeah.
So I think adding to that receiver room, because it doesn't seem like Charlie Jones is beloved in that receiver room right now, is what could have been. But unfortunately, if that's the case, who's your 5th wide receiver?
You know what? Also, I didn't want to double dip at linebacker because I still think that there's the guy the Bengals picked up this past year from the Eagles, Oren Burks, who I think that they really are excited about. I think he's going to play a lot of snaps.
And John Meta, Shaka Hayward have always played pretty well.
Mhm.
I'd still consider Holland Pierce to the Chiefs.
Meta,
John Meta?
John Meta, yeah.
That's a very good pick
John
for the
Meta,
Chiefs.
yeah.
That's a very good pick for the Chiefs.
Oh, RJ Mickens hoping he'd make it back down to us too.
Jimmy Horn Jr. Aronde Gads.
There's their Mike Gesicki again. But they won't use right and then leave somewhere and be great. Craig Woodson.
Hey, you can catch. Why don't you run block for us?
Pretty much. All right, here we go. 7th round, 2/3.
Malachi
Malachi Moore.
Wow.
Dang, that's another pretty good one there.
Yeah.
All right, scroll, Danny boy. I still like Spellmonden a lot as well here. I think I know we talked about linebacker, and I don't want to. He could be a guy you draft. He's gonna need some development. He's small, 9.24 RAS score is phenomenal. A 4.58 40. Just he's an uber athlete. He's gonna need some development. He's smaller. He's more of a coverage guy. He's just a guy that makes a lot of plays. He flies around. He's a good athlete. He's a project guy that I feel like maybe that's something that excites Golden. Getting a guy that can be a little bit more of a project for him. Just a bit again. Thinking about it, the linebacker room. Jermaine Pratt's in question, but so I like John Meta. We like Shaka Hayward. Like these people have made plays in the past. It doesn't mean necessarily how Golden does or whatnot, but I think he's a funish player.
Benjamin Harrison says, Evan, with respect, that's bullshit about Andre Oshie. That's what he says.
Dude, was that a hot take? Do we not remember last season when the training camp stories were all about the ascending Yoshivas and how he was going to sneeze that wide receiver 3 rolling? Yeah, he absolutely would make a critical catch or 2 per game. But when T. Higgins was out, he didn't necessarily ascend. It was Mike Gesicki who was getting a lot of looks. It was a lot of these other guys who were spreading the ball around. I don't think there was any game where it's like Yoshivas really took over and had 4 or 5 catches that changed that game. He was definitely solid and would have the 1 or 2 big catches but I still think there's room to be desired. I'm not trying to be too critical of a guy who was a mid-round pick out of a smaller school anyways. But yeah, I don't think that he ever reached the heights that like Tyler Boyd had. I think Mike Gesicki was a technically more effective wide receiver 3 for them. And if I'm just completely missing the mark here and I'm completely wrong, like I'm willing to hear the argument for it. But I just
Can you go to cornerback for a second? We
And
keep seeing Zach Frazier get mentioned, but LeJohntay Wester is a guy that I'm
I
interested
don't
in,
think
man.
Sal Frazier is on PFF. He's not. I look.
Yeah, he's not even on PFF.
Look, doesn't mean obviously he's going to be drafted, but if he's one of those players, he's probably not going to be here in this point. There's a couple people that are on PFF that aren't on here for some reason that will be drafted, just point blank. Period.
yeah, and on the point of the wide receiver, I think when you look at Andre Yoshivas is completely, he is not the explosive receiver that you're really hoping for, and Andre Yoshivas is a
Aaron
very
Lacy.
solid depth wide receiver. He can come in and be a very good possession receiver, but when you're talking about an explosive guy,
okay, I gotta stand. I got called out here, so now I gotta stand on this. All right.
Yeah.
Mike Gesicki had 82 targets. Andre Yoshivas had 59. Yards per route run in terms of efficiency. Mike Gesicki 1.58. Andre Yoshivas 0.84. Like not even 1 yard per route. That's just not down to down cutting it. Like again, I'm not trying to be down on Yoshi, but like if we're gonna sit here and say that the guy with 30 more catches and another 250, 300 yards, like was absolutely Yoshivas was a great red zone weapon, and that's a great role for him. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's like ascended to the down to down, consistent, reliable wide receiver type 3 that like Tyler Boyd was for this offense, or that other receivers can be. I think there's room for him to improve. There's room for him to grow. Like he's still raw in that sense, but like, yeah, I think Mike Gesicki was a bigger focal point of the receiving game last year than Yoshi, and I don't think that's a hot take.
He says trust and believe. That's what he says.
I do, but that's a different conversation.
I think
Believe.
he's a good. I think he's a good.
That's projecting forward. That's not looking last
I do
year.
think that he struggles with explosivity down the field personally, and offering you something different in that range. Can he prove us wrong? Absolutely. But again,
Right.
I
hope he does. That would be awesome.
like LeJohntay Wester personally. That doesn't mean we have to go with him. I'm just saying I like him. I think he has the upside in the return game as well. He was extremely productive at Colorado. I feel like a lot of guys at Colorado got a lot of love, but I feel like he was just, look at his numbers that he put up. It's 718, 1164, 931. He was the one receiver. And when we spoke with him at the combine, he said he felt he was the best receiver at Colorado. He just didn't get a lot of love because you had names like Travis Hunter, right? Guys like Jimmy Horn Jr. But and LeJohntay Wester, he's a smaller of the guy, but he's probably definitely going to be working inside the slot on the National Football League. I think he's going to offer a lot in the return ability. And to be honest with you, I feel like this guy he has the ability to take the top off the defense and offer something different. If you're talking about in this spot in the draft, just drafting a guy that could be a difference maker and do something different, I think that LeJohntay Wester offers that. And I think that if at the very least you take a shot on that guy, I think he can do some really, really good things. And the cool thing about him is he had some really, really standout performances against some really good teams. So
Yeah, I like the Wester shot here, to be honest. It's definitely something I, wasn't considering as much as I thought when we first pulled him up. But I really like the idea of a slot, like a pure slot guy here that offers something a little different than we don't really have. Another name I wanted just to throw out here is another safety, Hunter Wooler from Wisconsin. Another guy that, again, can do a little bit of everything. Plays 100+ snaps in the slot, 300 in the box, 220 deep, a 26 forced incompletion rate, solid run defense grade, solid coverage grade. Just a pretty solid player to be available this late. Not that they're trying to redo the whole defense, but the secondary has a lot of uncertainty. I don't want to say necessarily questions because there is talent, but we don't know how long people are going to be here. I just think the safety room could always use a body or two. Just another guy to consider really here.
Yeah, and we got some people like Christopher Higdon said Kyle Williams, wide receiver. He's already off the board. He is one that is, if you talk about LeJohntay Wester, these guys are both explosive wide receivers. The issue with Williams is he is going to go up very, very high. He will not be here around 6, 7, even around 5.
One thing I wanted to add about Wester is he does give you that added special teams ability. Is they've moved the kickoff or the touchback line to 35 now. That return game is even going to be more valuable now as NFL teams are encouraged more and more to keep those in play. You got a guy who last season was 46 punt returns and 6 kick returns. Like, he is well practiced there. He had 40 plus punt returns in each of his 5 years in college. He's got 259 total punt returns. So that's a lot of experience to have on special teams. Also giving you a little bit as a wide receiver, as an explosive
Fast.
gadget and special kind of facilitator when you need to bring him in, even if that is just to run those clear out routes. That's someone who can do that.
I think competition is always good in the receiver room as well, too. But I'm all for whoever we decide to draft here.
No, I think for me, that like the only other guy, like wide receiver is a position respectfully. If they can separate and they are an explosive guy, they are going to thrive. There are many guys, if you look at him for as low as this is on the board, if he is on the Bengals and if he is on the field, he is going to produce.
He has an 81.5 grade against man coverage.
And that's what he is. He's shifty. He is a guy who is, going to make people miss, and he is just an explosive guy.
He's 110 pounds.
So okay. So he weighed in at the combine at 163 pounds. That's not even the concerning part.
That's
not even the concerning part. Okay. The concerning part is that if you're going to be so small, you have to be an exceptional athlete. That's the only thing that can help you make up for that, because you don't have the mass and size. Vertical jump, 32 inches, 12th percentile.
Can you do that, Daniel?
Broad jump,
Probably
13 inches. I have to believe that's an error. I have to believe he messed up and
that's
fell
a mess
over
up.
doing that. That's not, but the vertical jump alone, you're supposed to be explosive. You ran a 4.46 at 160 pounds. That's not
the 13 inches thing is 100% an error.
well, the 10-yard split.
Right?
Well, yeah, I'm going to assume it is right now. But even the 10-yard split, let's say we take away the 40. Oh, the short area quickness, the 10-yard split was 64th percentile. Again, you're testing like an average athlete at 163 pounds. That is the concerning part for me.
Yeah.
Feel for space and ability to kind of set up leverage and take advantage of that can help to offset that a little bit. I do think he still provides that special teams where it matters less about that wiggle and more about that straight line ability. But I do hesitate to project a lot of NFL success going forward, because guys like Tutu Atwell, Tank Dell were much better short area quickness guys.
So we're off the board. We're on our last pick here.
Yeah.
We're 2 hours in.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I'm good with whatever.
Let's for the people real quick. Can we go to interior offensive lineman? Someone said it's Condra off the board.
Luke Andrew, I like Clay Webb a good bit here in general. Smaller school guy, was a big time recruit from Georgia, or committed to Georgia, didn't play, transferred all the way down to Jackson State. A good developmental run blocking guy. Just he's did some center reps down in Mobile for the Senior Bowl, if you want to consider that. But that's Marcus Ware from Montana State, same thing.
And we got another question. Someone's asked about us drafting Smelmonde. Well, they said I think we should draft Smelmonde.
I think it's really. I'm a huge fan of him.
Oh,
yeah, he is. Oh, he is.
I love taking the shots at linebacker.
The thing with him, and I think it's.
I got one more shot.
If we're projecting guys onto the Bengals, he gives you something that the Bengals don't have necessarily in their linebacker room. Hey, this dude can play safety. This dude, when you look at him, he is not your typical linebacker. And also, he's something that the Bengals love. He's from Georgia, an absolute athlete. And this is a guy where he is different than Shaq Hayward. He's different than Jean Meta. Those guys are more typical linebackers. He can cover your tight end. And for me, if I'm looking for a specific role guy, if my safety is not covering tight ends, and if I want a linebacker to cover tight ends, I would put him on the field. So I'm a huge fan.
The only
this dude's
other
chest is fucking huge. I'm sorry. He's got a 31.5-inch arm length, which is 33rd percentile, but his wingspan is 81st percentile. So dude is just a broad fucking guy.
The only other person I'd like to bring up quickly, I've brought in a few times, Colin Oliver from Oklahoma State, another Oklahoma State guy. Didn't play really much this year, dominated in the 2 games he played, was great in the year before.
He was injured and didn't get to play a lot.
Yeah, but he was phenomenal the last 2 years, 27 hurries, 28 hurries. The Bengals met with him also at the combine. Again, just a guy that, he's split his time between edge and true outside linebacker, kind of that Viper role Al Golden's ran in the past. Just, an upside pick here, a pure smaller edge rusher that can do a little bit.
Got one.
Nice. Yeah.
You got a couple.
No, I know. But I want to bear card pretty
we
bad.
could,
Be
we could, we
similar.
could fast forward it.
Get it over with, Daniel. Come on, dude.
Yeah, we've been here.
But Colin Oliver is a good last pick. Some good
Deontay
upside
Webster
there.
did get drafted too.
Good for him.
Good for him, man. That's for you're a hater.
I liked it. You sold me way more than I was expecting to like him.
Listen, I'm a good salesman.
Way more. You are.
All right, so we got our draft.
Wow.
Let's see what they've graded.
A
Wow, that's
A
one of my
minus.
best. And it is because we went high value positions in the first couple rounds.
Well, we drafted
And we-
two OSU dudes.
Yeah, back to back.
Wow.
Keep them together. Keep them both happy.
Wow,
Let's
man.
go.
Listen, man. But let's talk this draft through, man. Let's talk this draft through. Logan.
I really like it. You guys, I've talked about Mike Green. It's nothing about the player Mike Green, but the player Mike Green is awesome. There's so many things to like about Mike Green. He fits a lot of what we need. He can play the run just enough to be on the field more than maybe a guy like James Pierce can. Just a phenomenal pass rusher, which is what we need desperately. And then the trade down in the second round to get Porter, a big, uber athletic corner that can do a lot of different things. Just, again, super high upside at the corner, which is what the Bengals need. Tate Ratledge, super high upside. We've talked about it week in and week out. I love the double dipping with Jonah. I think there's two starters right there on the interior offensive line, which gives you several offensive linemen with years of control. JJ Pitt, one of the few pass rushing, fun, versatile-ish players. Can provide you some fun things on offense. Cody Simon, again, a linebacker that comes downhill, that had 7.5 sacks last year. Ollie Gordon, a big thumping running back. Colin Oliver, a high upside guy in the 7th round that has true, very high pass rush run rates across his career. Just about 30 hurries in every year of his career. There's just a lot of, we really married position of need now and future upside with all these picks. And, Malik loved the one that last week. I really love this one this week. And it's a little different, but I'm a really big fan of what we did this week.
I'm a fan of this draft too. I mean, it's different for sure. It's not what I necessarily thought going. I didn't think Mike Green would be available here, but obviously with every draft pick that you sort of have, you're going to have your question marks. You're going to, the Mike Green thing doesn't come without questions as far as the off the field stuff does that. He wasn't very transparent regarding that. It always feels like the trade back option in round 2 is a sweet spot for the Bengals. Now, will the Bengals trade back if a Tate Ratledge is available in the second round? Would they trade back, or would they just pull the gun and just draft him there, versus doing something else? But I love the double dip here. The logic behind this, Darian Porter is a guy that he tests extremely like an absolute freak. He's a guy that could be your cornerback 1, and could be really, really good. And then you look at a guy like Tate Ratledge and Jonah Savaina. I keep saying Jonah Savaina. These two guards, you probably got you definitely have your right guard here. And Jonah Savaina, I think he projects better as a left guard there, but he instantly comes in as better than Cody Ford. I like this draft. I think this is the double dip right here that you absolutely need. And this is the sweet spot in which you do it. You draft both of those guys. We kind of like take a shot in the dark because honestly, getting Tate Ratledge at 81 is probably,
Probably the lowest he'll go.
Probably the lowest he'll go, honestly.
Yeah, if he's there in the 3rd round, the Bengals will not draft him. He will be a Bengal.
Yeah.
I think that's if he's there in the 3rd round, I think you're trading up to go grab that guy.
Yeah, so I think I think those picks make sense. I love the fact that Jonah has the versatility to kick outside and be your swing guy, which is probably a world in which he could possibly be if Orlando Brown Jr. was to miss time. He would kick in, and one of those guys that you paid money to, like a Cody Ford, would probably slot into that guard spot. But you feel good about that. I think JJ was the last of the defensive tackles that truly are a difference maker as far as the pass rush department. I like JJ a lot. I think the one thing people miss when they talk about him is, even though Walter Nolan obviously is a freak in the run game, and I feel like he has a lot of growing to do in the pass rush department personally, especially with his hand placement and stuff like that. I feel like JJ is really, really good with his hands, and he's going to affect the game. He's going to find a way to affect the game. If BJ Hill was to miss time, you feel good about that guy getting those starter minutes. Cody Simon is a guy that you feel like could potentially push for starter minutes. You got to feel really, really good about him. He was asked to do a lot at Ohio State. He earned the trust and respect of the defensive coordinator here. Ollie Gordon, again, a pick that I absolutely love. I think he offers something different, and I think he's gonna have a hard time keeping that guy off the football field as well. And I love us taking a shot in the dark on a guy like Colin Oliver, who could produce a lot for you.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of this. My biggest thing, and this goes for the Bengals' actual draft, is in order to get this, you're going to have to trade back. And that's my concern. That's my hope with them is, hey, I love the double dip. We did that both the past 2. And I think that is the best way you can leave the draft is if you were to double dip in the interior offensive line. My concern is if they don't trade back. So that's why I love this. I love the fact that we traded back, and it gives you pretty much everything when we look at this draft. And if this were the actual draft 3 years in the future, if Mike Green is your starting out edge rusher and is a star, at least one of these two is your locked in interior offensive line. And if you can get Darian Porter to be a star cornerback, you absolutely win this draft. And all these guys, I think, can give you a shot in the dark of at least they're upside guys.
Can I be real with you?
Yeah.
The issue though with this,
Yeah.
I just feel like the Bengals are not. They've always got to be the smartest people in the room.
Yep.
So I feel like sometimes the picks that we are looking at, I think we looked at these picks and we say these are obvious for us. I feel like they're not so obvious to them. And I think that's the one issue. That's the issue with having a small scout department. The Bengals scouting department is probably the size of us in this room right here.
Yes.
Right in the room right
Yeah.
And we can look at it and be like, okay, these are the obvious players that make a lot of sense for us and identify when it makes sense to potentially trade back. But everything with them is like pulling teeth. It's like how we have to win every bit. And, you're dealing with against 31 other NFL teams. These guys are going to be vying for these same players. But I feel like being strategic and being smart and being able to take the layups when they are presented to you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the last few drafts, there have been a couple of layups that have been presented to the Bengals. I could date back a couple of years ago where Isaiah Likely was staring the Bengals right in the face, and they literally had the nerve to come out and say they didn't come out and say this, but some of the beat writers said, "Oh, the Bengals rate them very, very highly. They're ranked really highly on their board."
Mhm.
Well, why wouldn't you draft that player? You went and took a shot on somebody else who's no longer even on the team anymore.
It's always the worst when they come out like a year or two after the guy's been successful and been like, "Man, we really had him high on our draft board." It's like, sure.
And you
sure,
passed
bud.
up on him so many times for players that are no longer on your teams.
Right.
If you rate a player and he's your best tight end in your class or the best player or right up there with them, if you love a player in the second round and he's there in the third round, why wouldn't you draft him in the third round? Why would you take the shot against saying, well, there was a player that we loved that we knew projected better as a third round pick? Why would you say, hey, we're going to draft that guy in the third round because we loved him at that spot versus just drafting the guy that was available for you? I don't know. For me, it's just a lot of overthinking things and making things a lot more difficult than what it has to be. I feel like if the draft plays out like this, the Bengals are going to be playing a lot of winning football with a lot of these guys contributing in a significant way. And I think that a lot of these guys that we picked, there was no filler picks. There was no guy here that we were looking at. For me, I think the Smell Mondon pick would have been a filler pick a little bit to a degree because I think you would have just been taking a chance. I think Colin Oliver is a guy that's probably, if he is healthy, if he's out there, I think he's going to be able to produce for you.
I think this gives you 2 starters and 4 guys that are going to be rotational players. And that is so much of what you need with an infusion of youth, cheap contracts, having that depth, and just trying to get that athleticism too, man. Like, you're getting more athletic at guard, you're getting athletic at corner, you're getting athletic at edge, you're getting athletic at defensive line, at running back. And I love the Colin Oliver pick at the end. That's really, really cool. Definitely a great upside swing that you need with Joseph Osai and Cam Sample both on 1-year deals. Again, it's a lot like the cornerback room where, hey guys, like in 1 year, you could be missing like 7 players between your corner and your defensive line room. Like, you really need to have an insurance policy for that as that unfolds over the next couple of years.
Yeah, man, I'm a fan of this. And like I said, I think that this is, if the draft were to actually play out like this, I think this is something that Bengals fans should be happy with. And at the end of the day, I think we all got players here that at least we were very, very confident. Each player we can at least project to be a starting caliber player.
Can I be honest with you? One last thing I'll say. I thought I'd be more excited for the Mike Green pick than I am. I don't know why I'm not.
It's because it's the layup. It's because it's like picking Joe Burrow 1-1. And sure, you're excited about the prospect, but like it feels like eating your vegetables in the first round where you're just like, you got to take whatever falls to you as the best value, and you get 1 or 2 guys and you're like, okay, but the fun in the draft is getting the guys who drop, right? It's having those surprises, kind of piecing that together. What can I wait on? What runs happened? Like that's the fun of the draft, man. So even though the first pick is good, it's not always the most fun.
Yeah, I think that's what it, or maybe it's off.
It's scary.
It's like I feel like the talent is obvious, but like it's like the off the field stuff. For me, maybe it's just how I feel towards that. It doesn't sit well with me.
You're almost waiting for the first game to happen and be like, okay, as soon as you see him do it in the game. Be like, okay, maybe all right, we got this.
Honestly, I wouldn't feel good about that pick until the first full year off season, no issues, nothing flares up. Then I'd feel like I can breathe. That's what, because
I'm with you.
2 allegations of that to me,
I'm with you completely.
like even if you didn't do that, it's why are you in the position to even be accused of that?
Right.
And that's alarming to me. And then you
That
have to
starts
ask
becoming a
yourself-
pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
That's not
That's
great.
the only thing that doesn't sit well with me. It's like, okay, like it's okay, either you make bad decisions or you make bad decisions.
Yeah,
Which
you're
is
drafting a
something-
guy who's already got 2 strikes, man.
Yeah.
Like, which is always the
Yeah.
scary part. He might
Mhm.
hit a home run.
Yeah.
You know, he might strike
Yeah.
out quickly.
Yeah, and
So,
but also there has to be a lot of PR done, right,
Yes.
on that side to win over the fan base to a degree, because there's going to be those that feel unappreciated or not feel right about this pick because it is a risk you're taking. So.
And just one last thing on Green, I think from a pure realistic standpoint of who they typically like, they don't necessarily love these 1-year.
pounds.
Well, first off, edge rushers, you know, the smaller side,
Yeah.
but a small school guy who had one dominant year. They typically love, you know, getting these guys from the bigger schools that have produced for 2 to 3 years. And that is the concern when we're projecting, will they actually take Mike Green? I would be honestly, and this is me being, I would be shocked if Pierce is on the board, Nolan's on the board, Kelvin Banks on the board, if they were to take Mike Green.
You know what I think? I think based on what I heard at the combine and just all the tea leaves that have happened, I think the Bengals, with all due respect, there's a lot of beat writers that do a great job for the Bengals. I think the beat writers are selling. I think the Bengals are being sold bullshit to the organization.
Yeah.
I do not think the Bengals are going to draft an interior offensive line in the first round. I understand there's that talk of Kelvin Banks, but you can't tell me that interior offensive line is a true thing that you're worried about for the future, and you didn't make concerted effort in free agency to actually address the position. And you can't tell me that you're already plotting outwardly on Orlando Brown potentially not re-signing here or retiring.
To be fair, I could have said the same thing about the Drew Sample pick in the second round,
Yeah,
where
but I also think that
is
was-
tight end something that you're very worried
But-
about for the
but-
future, and
but
you
to
have
be
to have
fair,
this guy. But
That was a panic pick. That was a panic
well,
pick.
so was Billy Price, and
No,
they seem to panic a lot on draft.
Well, I'm just saying that was a panic pick because they came in slow, and they obviously Zac Taylor got hired, and that was a nightmare draft. Respectfully, It was a nightmare draft. So that they haven't had that shitty of a draft, I would say. But I think that the interior of the offensive line talk that we're seeing in the first round, I think is complete bullshit. I don't think that they do that. I think they understand that they need to get better in the pass rush department, and I'm willing to bet that they're trying to have a little bit of a smoke screen and then draft one of these guys, because I think everybody in the National Football League, everybody is expecting the Bengals to go defensive line at 17. Nobody's expecting them to go anywhere else. And so, like, if this is smoke screen season, you know, I think it's bullshit. Personally, you don't have the tea leaves being defensive line, all free, all throughout the NFL offseason, and then say, hey, we're actually going to go offensive line because that's what we prioritize. Because that's not true.
And it's also just looking at the board in general. They're going to have, like we saw today, Pierce is on the board, Nolan's on the board, Michael Williams is on the board. The defensive line at the top of this class were on the board.
And let me be clear, when I say defensive line, I mean edge.
Okay.
They are a reactionary team.
Yeah.
Look at their MO. Everything that they do is reactionary. You know, when it comes to edge, they don't know what's going to happen with the Trey Hendrickson situation. There's a real world in which Trey Hendrickson plays one last year with the Bengals and then leaves. They don't have an answer beyond that. There's no solidified true answer at the defensive end position beyond this year. There isn't. Joseph Osai's on a 1-year deal, and he has one of the most aggressive agents to you. If you let me ask you, if Joseph Osai goes on to have a 10-sack season, what do you think David Mulligetta, especially with him being so young, is going to ask for when that guy's a free agent?
Oh yeah,
the Bengals aren't going to win in a negotiation battle with that. He's coming for everything. You know? Do you know that guy is probably pissed that he had to settle for a 1 year, even a 1 year, $7.5 million deal? Joseph Osai got more money than what some of these other guys got that had better production. And he still cashed in for $7.5 million on 1 year. So what do you think that guy's actually going to get? You don't have an answer beyond this year with Trey Hendrickson. And guess what? My thought process is the draft is in 2 weeks? 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
The Bengals are not going to have this situation with Trey Hendrickson probably hammered out before then. If it is,
Mhm.
great. So you're going into the draft with unanswered questions. So guess what? You have to leave the draft with that question. And unfortunately for Trey, it might look like the Jesse Bates situation where your replacement's getting drafted. Now we don't give a fuck if you want to play or if you're upset or not like that. We already got your replacement in the building, so you're either going to play and shut up, or what are you going to do? Like a team's going to come calling for a premium pick that didn't get the pass rushers they wanted. That's really what we're dealing with. That's a realistic thing that I think it's clearly staring the Bengals in the face. Now, maybe they whiff and they don't get an edge rusher they want. Then they have to cave and they have to try trade Trey. But the only thing I can think of why the Bengals are dragging their feet is because they're banking that they're going to get a guy at 17. Yeah. That's what I think. They're banking they're going to get a guy at 17 and they're willing to gamble.
And they did that with offensive line.
Mhm.
Like they did that last year. And it was pretty sold on, hey, like the depth was there and they took the guy that they believe is going to be their franchise offensive tackle. And I think looking at the depth here, there is going to be one of these guys, Michael, James Pierce, Mike Green. There's going to be a pass rusher on the board that they could potentially take. So if they were to go with how
the Bengals brass didn't go to Marshall's pro day for anybody else other than Mike Green.
Oh,
let's not kid ourselves. Like they didn't. So if they're trying, the Bengals talk to,
They got a good safety.
Yeah. That's exactly. I'm saying, but like realistically, come on, that's not what they went for. Anyway, that's all the time that we've got. We appreciate you guys for tuning in for another episode of the State of the Jungle presented by the Right Way Sports Network. We appreciate you guys so much. We hope that you guys enjoy the draft. Let us know in the comment section how you guys thought we graded out with this. Next week will be War Room episode 4.0. I'm excited to be talking everything through with the guys. I'm excited to be talking this whole thing through and having the conversation. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live. And until next time, as always,